just woke up and so I'm gonna do what I usually do. Just woke up. I don't know, I just like waking up. So I'm gonna be doing a daily vlog because, yeah. Like everything I do in the day. So, yeah. I'm gonna open the curtains and yeah. So cold, quiet. Actually, it's quiet. Everybody's sleeping and I'm so happy. It's so quiet. My mom is sleeping, my sister is sleeping, my nephews are sleeping. The silence is so nice. But after everybody wakes up, it's not gonna be silent anymore. So I'm also gonna fold this blanket. Most of the people in the group chat don't wake up until like 10, 11, 12. So yeah, I'm the first to wake up. We pulled an all-nighter again with the exact usual people. Yeah. Okay. Gonna come back. My room is clean. So I just finished and now I'm gonna tidy up the place. So I'm gonna fast forward that. So now I'm going to, I don't really know, I kind of need to go use the bathroom, so I'm gonna do that. Okay, so I'm gonna go try and make something for me to eat. I know my hair looks so crazy. I've had it in for like, I guess, 2 days now since Sunday. So yeah. I'm gonna look for something to eat. The heck? I'm gonna look for something to eat, and then when I'm done eating, I'm done doing some stuff, I'm going to do my hair and things like that. So, and then I'm gonna eat like something breakfast wise. I really don't know. So it took me 2 hours to figure out what I wanted to eat, but I ate and it was good. So now, after brushing my teeth because I just ate, I am going to, I don't know, take a bath and do my hair, etc., etc. And then we'll start my actual day. And surprisingly, when I woke up, I did not feel tired, even though I went to bed pretty late. So yeah.
I begged my dad to take me to her place. I had dropped out of my final examination and I was in pretty bad condition. That's when she told me the story. So before she was dating her now girlfriend, she was dating this guy who she dreamt of spending her whole life with, only to find out he slept with his coworker. After a year of their breakup, the homewrecker comes to my aunt and gives her a wedding invitation and rubbing it into her face that she was pregnant. Well, the catch is, my aunt said gleefully that her ex was infertile. Him and my aunt had been trying to have a baby to no avail, and hence they went to a doctor. And the test results were sent to her. So her ex didn't know he was infertile. She said she didn't tell him out of spite, but boy did it play out good for her. Her ex was Christian, so they did not have a typical Hindu wedding, but the ones they show in English movies. My aunt talked to her ex's brother and convinced him to play a part in her revenge. The brother was up for it apparently. So at the reception, there are this walk down the memory lane kind of event where they show pictures of the couple. So after a few cute pictures, a picture of the homewrecker with another man kissing pops up. And then another, and as the bride was in a frenzy, the test result shows up on the screen and the slide stops. A written note saying that the groom was infertile. And boy, the aunties at the party were all in for the drama as the groom looked utterly humiliated and the bride was in tears. This is what you get for messing with a woman's true feelings. Man, I love my aunt. She's a badass.
Am I the asshole for liquidating my daughter's college fund to keep our dream house? I, 50 female, lost my husband 4 years ago. I also have a 16-year-old daughter. My late husband left me everything and told me to trust his lawyer. My husband worked for 20 years as a doctor, so I inherited over 7 figures. A year later, I decided to list our home of 12 years and received an offer too good to refuse. I decided to move my daughter and I to Malibu because we always dreamed of a house next to the beach. But my husband was exceptionally tight-fisted and called homes their money pits. We found a beautiful home, but I never personally handled anything regarding buying a home before, so I didn't anticipate all the extra costs. Am I the asshole for liquidating my daughter's college fund to keep our dream house? My daughter was so excited, so I decided to go for it. My late husband's lawyer was furious at my decision, so I decided to stop taking his calls. I ended up signing with a money manager who said we'd be passively earning 90% of what surgeons earn per year. But he ended up tanking a lot of our investments. I then made my own investments, which just made it worse, and now we only have $35,000 available, not to mention our debt.
We get a lot of questions about whether our app is actually free to use. Yes, our app is free to use, and I'm gonna prove it to you.
Basically, I'm out of luck until my business gets clients. My husband did start a college fund for our daughter, and that would keep us afloat for many more months. So I liquidated it, and now she's furious. Am I the asshole for asking my brother to pay $3,000 for my engagement ring? I decided to host a family dinner over the weekend, and my brother brought my nephews 4 and 8 over as well. I used to wear my engagement ring all the time, but lately I keep it in my walk-in closet and wear it for special occasions. While I was cleaning the dinner table, my nephews went to go play while the adults were still in the outdoor patio area. Mind you, my brother was not supervising his kids. So during this time, my nephews went into the master bedroom with no one knowing and started playing with everything, including my engagement ring. When we eventually came to look for them, they panicked because they knew they weren't supposed to be upstairs, so they ran into the master bathroom and flushed my ring. Am I the asshole for asking my brother to pay $3,000 for my engagement ring? You heard me right, my brother's kids flushed my engagement ring. We called a plumber in case it was somehow in the U-trap of the toilet and not actually gone, but nope. Unfortunately, it was gone for good. We still had the original receipt, so I called my brother and emailed him a scanned copy as proof of the cost. I asked him to reimburse me for the ring my nephew flushed, and immediately he started calling me an a-hole because we're family and he was just a child. So he's refused to repay the cost of my ring, and I told him I'll be taking him to court for this, and now my entire family is blowing up my phone. Am I wrong? Am I the asshole for my husband missing his daughter's prom? I, 36 female, have been married to my husband Josh, 40, for 10 years. We have a 9-year-old daughter, Lauren, together, and my stepdaughter, Riley, is 18. About a year ago, I booked a vacation with my girlfriends for one of their bachelorette parties. It's in Tennessee, and we would leave Thursday and come back Monday. Well, this weekend, Lauren has a cheerleading competition that Josh is taking her to. She's required to have a guardian there the whole time and needs to arrive early Friday and leave Sunday. And if she's not there for check-in in time, she can't compete that weekend. The issue is Riley's prom is on Friday. Am I the asshole for my husband missing his daughter's prom? Riley did not have a junior prom, and her school only has a senior prom. We found out the day of prom after school had started and the trip had already been booked and paid for. My husband is now going to miss Riley's prom to take Lauren to her competition. Riley finds this extremely unfair and thinks we're playing favorites and she'll never get this chance again, and she wants pictures with her dad and sister. But Lauren doesn't want to miss her competition and risk her spot on the team. So my husband asked if I canceled my trip and I told him no. It's been booked, paid for, and I need a break. He takes breaks and trips as well. Am I wrong?
Blur like magic. New Bear With Me Blur Tint Foundation. Pores, blurred. Discoloration, blurred. Imperfections, blurred. In 24 blurring shades. That's right, who needs a filter?
My friend hit his daughter and broke her rib. I'm absolutely furious right now. My friend has a daughter who is also in my 7th grade history class. She is the nicest kid in the world and one of the best students in any of my classes. However, this morning she came into my class late and was not herself. Normally, she is raising her hand and engaging with the class, but she had her hoodie up and her head down. She was holding her arm to the side and looked to be in pain. Halfway through class, I walked by her desk to check on her, and she looked up at me and had tears in her eyes. I brought her outside my classroom and asked her what was wrong, but she was not responding, but she started crying even more. After a couple of more minutes of reassurance, she finally opened up. She woke up late for school and accidentally dropped a glass of water when she was getting ready. My friend, who was her father, punched her twice in the ribs and yelled at her for being clumsy. I asked her if she was hurt, and she pulled her hoodie up and her ribs were beginning to bruise. My friend is 6'4" and over 200 pounds. My student is 12 years old and cannot be more than 85 pounds. I asked my colleague in the next class to watch over my class, and I took her to the health office where her mother picked her up. When she saw her daughter sitting in pain, she nearly burned the office down. She started cursing my friend's name and said this was the last straw for her. She asked me not to file a report, but I told her I was required to, as I was shown evidence of abuse and her daughter used the word abuse, which she begrudgingly understood. I am so mad right now. My friend has always had a short temper, but hitting your child because she dropped a glass is beyond disgusting. My student's mother texted me at noon and said her daughter broke a rib and is going to be out of class until Wednesday. I feel awful for my student. She is such a bright student and is well liked by her peers, and now she is having trouble breathing because her father cannot act like an adult. I am ending my friendship with this man. He has been getting on my nerves for a while, but I will be damned if I am friends with someone who hits their child.
Am I the asshole for leaving my mom/roommate? I, 27 female, and my mom, 48 female, are roommates. A little backstory here. I have twins both turning 8 this month. I let my mom move in so she could get on her feet. When she moved in, we agreed that all bills would be split down the middle. She's on a fixed income and receives disability every month, so over time I stopped expecting her to pay everything right down the middle and instead asked for $300 for rent and that she pay her own phone bill and I would cover the rest. This past spring, her boyfriend got her caught up into drugs and she relapsed. She OD'd and I called 911, and her terms of probation she had violated. They sent a warrant out for her arrest. She spent 2 weeks in jail and was sentenced to 6 months of house arrest. I was still working 2 jobs to make ends meet during this time, trying to keep everything afloat. Now I pay rent, utilities, and help pay her ankle bracelet fees. It's too much. I've been busting my ass pulling overtime to make sure I can give my kids a nice birthday. Our rent is running a few days late this month. I did the math, including her portion of finances. I figured I'd be able to get both of my children a really nice gift this year and still make my half of the rent. The day to pay the landlord came in, my mom has no money at all. She gets $876 a month in disability, and it's only been 5 days since she's broke. I was so hurt and pissed that she completely left me financially responsible for all of us. I found a 1-bedroom apartment and called this morning behind her back. I'm packing and leaving November 1st and leaving her to figure out her own. So, am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for being reluctant to cover my girlfriend's half of the rent? I, 34 male, have been with my girlfriend, 30 female, for 4 years, and we've been living together for over 3. We're very close, and she's a fantastic partner, and I adore her. She's done a lot for me financially because she helped support me through a career transition, and then my new career was impacted by COVID. Last year, she covered my half of the rent for about 6 months, but the thing is that I only ever asked once or twice, and she made it sound like it was a gift. She even explicitly told me she would cover my rent for 3 months so I could have breathing room to pay down my credit cards. Though I'm out of credit card debt, I don't have nearly as much savings as her. Am I the asshole for being reluctant to cover my girlfriend's half of rent? I know she has $10,000 in her bank account at all times because she told me this and has showed me before. I only have $2,500 in my bank account at this moment. Well, my girlfriend's job just went haywire with problems and is laying off the whole staff. They're giving them $250 a week for 6 weeks as severance, and it's really a nightmare and she's freaking out. So she asked me if I could maybe cover her half of rent come May 1st. That way she could spend this month trying to find a new job because she doesn't want to touch her savings. I said sure, but she could tell I was uncomfortable, and when she asked why, I said I didn't even have savings. Am I the asshole for labeling all the bottles in the house because my children are idiots? I have 2 of my children living with me, one that has graduated from college and the other is a junior. I have a scalp condition, so I have to purchase medicated shampoo. It is a prescription and it's very expensive. It also comes in packaging that is meant to be stored upright, not on its side, definitely not upside down. My daughter has her hair products in the shower and I do not touch them. My son also keeps his Axe in the shower and I do not touch it since I have zero desire to smell like a high school locker room. For some reason, the 2 of them cannot understand that not all packaging is meant to be upside down and have wasted half the bottle. Am I the asshole for labeling all the bottles in the house because my children are idiots? I talked to both of my children and explained that they cannot touch my stuff, and if they accidentally tip over my shampoo, it was meant to be stored with a lid at the top. But when I came home last week, I found my shampoo leaking out of the bottle again, upside down. So I ordered 500 stickers that say "this way up" with an arrow pointing upwards when the words are upright. I put them on everything in the house that might leak, with my shampoo being literally covered in them. Well, they had friends over last weekend and noticed that the relish, ketchup, mustard, and mayonnaise were all labeled. And now they're super embarrassed. Am I wrong?
1 sheet of Bounty versus 1 sheet of the ordinary brand. 1 sheet of Bounty.
Am I wrong? For turning down my stepmother's necklace to wear during my wedding. My stepmother, I use the term just for here, but to me, she's the woman my dad is married to, has always wanted a daughter. She has 4 boys with my dad. She was my dad's wife to me and my sister. We lost our mom very young, but neither of us were willing to have a second mom. We were both clear about this from the jump. This bothered her, but she just decided that she would just have babies with dad and get as many daughters as she could. Then, after boy number 4, she was unable to have more, and I remember her telling us she hated us for denying her the opportunity to be a mom to daughters. Yeah, because that's your fault, right? That we didn't have a mom anymore, and she would have loved us and done everything to be a good mom. Years have gone by since then, and we really don't talk all that much to her, or our dad for that matter. My sister got married 4 years ago, but only invited me and her husband's family. Now it's my turn, and I did decide to have a slightly bigger wedding, and because of some pressure from extended family, I invited my dad and his family. Stepmother tried to give me her necklace for the wedding. She said it was something the woman in her family wear on their wedding day and they pass it down. She wanted to be able to pass it down, but I said no to it. This upset her, and then the whole extended family heard about it. Now I'm being told that since I invited her, I should be more willing to accept this, even though I invited them because of the pressure put on me to. They told me I should be willing to treat them like family and be kind and go out of my way for them as such, and it was cruel to turn down a sentimental item. So, am I the asshole? Well, I don't care how sentimental that shit is. If I don't like it, I don't like it. I'm not wearing it. Simple as that, regardless of who it came from.
My mother-in-law was poisoning me, then I found out why. I met Craig on one of my rare vacations. We had sort of a whirlwind relationship. We fell hard for each other and were married in a courthouse within 2 months without ever meeting each other's family. Mine visited a few weeks later, and after their initial shock, they really liked Craig. We got moved in together and figured out married life. I got to hear more about his parents, who lived near the rest of his extended family a few hours away. I finally got a few days off so we could visit his family about 6 months later. His whole family came over and everyone seemed thrilled to meet me, except his mom, Betsy. She was cold and distant and can sit there without saying a single word to me. It was creepy, but I kept trying to spark up a conversation. On our last day, he announced that we should take an afternoon hike up to a national park their house sat on the edge of. Betsy made lunch and I was changing when it hit me. Just waves of nausea. I wound up in the bathroom for hours that afternoon. Figured it was a touch of something and thought nothing of it. We went back a few months later and had a great time, except for Betsy. She wouldn't talk to me. Craig finally said we could rent jet skis the next day and explore the lake in the next town as a way of getting out of the house and unwind, which made me feel better. I was so excited to tell everyone where we were going, but it wasn't to be. After eating, I got so sick I could barely walk for the next 2 days.
At this point, I started to get suspicious. No one else was sick, but we all ate the same food. I was sure Betsy was poisoning me.
me. Craig said I was insane. He said it must be an allergy to something his mom used in her cooking. Still, I decided on the next trip I'd make a big casserole and bring it up with us. The next time I got off, we decided we'd head to that little cottage we had rented before and not been able to use. We were driving past his family's place, so it seemed rude not to stop, so we compromised and bought some pizzas. When one of his cousins arrived, everyone briefly left the food unattended. I realized my mistake almost immediately and decided to try and experiment. Craig and I both had 2 slices, so I just switched our plates while everyone was in the next room. Craig was so sick, I was really worried about him. We had been back home for 3 days before I broke down and told him I switched the plates. I've never seen such anger before. The rage in his eyes is something I'll remember for the rest of my life. He shoved me into a wall and he threw me over the couch, but I somehow managed to grab my keys and phone and ran out of the door, not even wearing shoes. It was 2 days before I turned my phone back on. When I heard the message from the police, I immediately drove upstate. Craig was dead. Betsy had shot him after he broke into her house and charged at her with a knife. I learned that Craig had been married before and his wife died on a tragic hiking accident. Craig made a lot of money from the life insurance payout, and Betsy always suspected Greg had killed her. He was nervous about leaving me alone with him, though she ensured every time he planned an outing I would be sick. I found the life insurance policies he took out on me without my knowledge afterwards and refused to press charges on Betsy. She was only trying to protect me after all.
Am I the asshole for screwing over all the people that donated their time and their money? The PTA has been planning a fundraiser for months to raise money for new cheerleading uniforms. The old uniforms were very outdated and all of the kids are excited about the new ones, including mine. Early in the planning, I agreed that my property could be used at no cost for the event, and that I would provide all of the furnishing. Other people worked hard on buying and making items to be sold at the fundraiser. Some people literally spent upwards of hundreds of hours and/or dollars for the event. While at a recent meeting, the football coach said the equipment was badly worn and needed to be replaced ASAP. So guess where the fundraiser money went? Am I the asshole for screwing over all the people who donated their time and money? I was pissed. Football is always the top priority. I went above and beyond here specifically to help out the cheerleading team. My child and all of their friends on the team got their hopes up only to be dashed. So I told everyone that my property would no longer be available for use and they would need to find a new venue. People panicked and got angry, including several people who voted against the change. They said my decision was equivalent to throwing all their hard work in the trash. I asked them how they think the cheerleaders would feel, and they said I can't overrule the will of the majority. I said they can do what they want, but not on
Mr. Clean Magic Eraser powers through tough messes.
So it makes it look like I spent hours cleaning. And you know I didn't.
It makes my running shoe look like new. It's amazing.
It's so good. Makes it look like I have magical powers.
Magic Eraser and sheets make cleaning look easy.
Am I the asshole for telling my brother he's the biggest imbecile in the whole universe? I, 20 female, have an older brother 23 and a younger brother 14. My older brother Derek likes to humiliate people and call it pranks and used to do it to me until I called the police. Well, now he does it to our younger brother Jim, who hates the pranks and our parents do nothing. Anyways, yesterday was Jim's birthday and we threw a small party with friends and relatives. I explicitly told Derek no pranks. Dad brought out the cake, we were all excited, Jim blew out his candles, and then Mom took off the candles to cut the cake. Before she had time, Derek rushes behind Jim, grabs his head, and shoves his face into the cake hard. Am I the asshole for telling my brother he's the biggest imbecile in the whole universe and needs therapy? Family and friends laughed, but I was mortified. I realized that Jim was struggling, and I helped him get up and wiped his face carefully. He hissed in pain, and when I looked closer, a piece of cake got stuck in his eye. It was becoming red and he was crying in pain. I was panicking, Mom was panicking. I don't know what the rest of the family were doing, but I grabbed Jim and said, let's go to the ER. Then Derek said, there she goes being a stuck-up B-word and exaggerating. He's fine, clean the eye with some water. So I called him an imbecile and said he needs therapy. At the ER, they cleaned his eye with solution, but when I got back, the family was mad about what I said about Derek. Am I the asshole for telling my wife I want her best friend to leave after she invited her to live with us? My 38 wife 32 has invited her best friend 32 to live with us because she's going through a really messy divorce. She has her baby with her, and I do like her friend, and we're actually the godparents of her baby. I really hate the situation and really want her to leave because my wife basically has no time for me anymore. She used to cook for me, and that doesn't happen anymore, and we haven't been intimate since she moved in. I also really wish the kid wasn't here because she wakes up every single night. Not to mention the fact that we have a small apartment and there's kids' toys everywhere. Am I the asshole for telling my wife I want her best friend to leave after she invited her to live with us? Not to mention we have a really small apartment and there's kids' toys everywhere. They sleep in the living room, which is where my Xbox is, so I haven't been able to play that either. She also puts dirty diapers in the kitchen garbage and the whole house smells. And now my wife is talking about us watching the kid while her friend goes on a work trip for 2 weeks. I just really hate this and it seems unfair to me. Why is my life being turned upside down? Where's her ex-husband in all this? I don't know how long this is supposed to last, but it's not working and I told my wife I want her to go. Am I wrong?
My wife poured a bottle of water on me and I think I'm done. This happened a few weeks ago. My wife and I were arguing about how to cut onions. I had stupidly thought that I could do it all, that I could chop up onions and add them to the chili as she asked. She came by and got pissed, telling me that I'd cut them too coarse, that they were supposed to be much smaller, and that the chili was ruined because I'd put them in the pot. I said, okay, let me just get them out. They're just on top and I was just trying to do what you asked. I can cut them smaller and I start to pull them out with a spoon. She says, no, that's okay, don't do it. She'll just do it. She pushes me out of the way and takes the knife out of my hand. I let go. I start to complain about how I did what she asked, and if she wanted them put on the chili at the end, she should have just asked for that instead of me putting them into the chili while it was still on the stove. I desperately wish I could do something, anything right. I retreat to the other room as I'm pretty freaking sad. I'm 28 years old and I can't make canned chili apparently. I sit down on the bed trying to stay out of my wife's way so she can fix my mistakes. She brings in dinner and I'm ready to drop the problem. I eat and she eats half of her food, then brings it back up. I apologize multiple times. She doesn't seem satisfied. I tried to explain myself then that I feel like maybe she should have communicated a little better if she'd wanted the onions as a garnish instead of just in the chili. She tells me I'm not listening, that I'm cutting her off. I don't understand. I feel like we're taking turns. I desperately try to stay calm, keep my voice quiet. As calmly as possible, I say that I would appreciate it if she could be more specific about what she wants. Then she snaps and pours the entire glass bottle of water all over me. As she does, I can hear myself saying, please don't, as water runs down my face and back. It's making a huge mess. My first instinct is to clean the water up, wipe it up, get the blanket dry. I tried so hard to be good. I tried so hard to keep my calm and it got me nowhere. I get my keys and leave, still crying. My wife starts crying as I walk out, telling me I don't care about our relationship and that I'm just abandoning her. I just tell her as calmly as I can that I need to be alone for a little bit. I go out for an hour and sit by the library. I'm cold and wet. She calls me several times. I don't really want to answer. I haven't been okay since this. I know it seems stupid, but this event has pulled up a lot of bad things she did to me in the past when she was going through a lot of things in her life. She's apologized for some, others she doesn't even remember. Verbal, emotional, physical. I don't think I can stay married. It's like everything keeps boiling up. I don't know why this. Maybe I'm overreacting. I don't know. This incident just sounds like it's the straw that broke the camel's back. Oh, bro, what? I don't know why I thought this was a man, but it's a woman. There's an edit. She goes, I want to add that I'm also a woman too. My wife and I are both women, since many of the comments and responses are assuming I'm male.
My ex-fiance wants to meet up after leaving me at the altar almost 4 years ago. I, 29 female, was supposed to be getting married to my fiance at the time, Jay. Everything was going perfect. I was in my dress, had my makeup on, taking pictures with my bridesmaids. I was pretty much ready to walk down the aisle when Jay's best man pulled me to the side and said Jay was gone. He'd gotten into his car and left and no one was able to get a hold of him. I came home to our apartment and all of his stuff was gone. He'd pretty much been a ghost ever since he left me, and I had to force myself to move on. I ended up going on our honeymoon with my best friends and then put myself in therapy to heal from the horrible trust issues I now had. I haven't heard from him once until today. I guess he got back into contact with an old mutual friend who gave him my number. Jay texted me and said he wants to meet up and apologize. I swore Jay was a dead memory, but my curiosity and desire to get closure with him is pestering me. My current boyfriend supports whatever I decide, but I feel out of respect for him and how wonderful he's been, I should ghost Jay. I'm very confused and have no idea what to do. I was part of a 12-step program and he was making amends. We met up at the park and my boyfriend came with me. He sat off to the side while Jay and I talked. I actually feel stupider after meeting up with him. There were a lot of things in our relationship that would have had me out the door if I had paid more attention and if he wasn't such a great liar. For the last year of our relationship, he had been doing drugs and cheating on me. He had been struggling with his sexuality for years. It's not surprising it ended this way now knowing the truth. His family's incredibly homophobic and they are horrible people. I wanted nothing to do with them when we were together. The drugs were something to get him through the day and act like he was in love with me. He had met his boyfriend at work and I had actually met him a few times when I dropped off lunch for Jay. His boyfriend said he needed to choose and Jay chose him. So he packed up his bags and pretended everything was okay until his boyfriend came to pick him up and they moved 2 towns over. He's no longer with his boyfriend. He thought he could quit the drugs once he was free of his family and the lying, but he couldn't. His boyfriend found out and left him. He kept going, getting high, hooking up with randoms. One of his regular hookups ended up ODing while they were sleeping in the same bed together and passed away. He then realized he had to get sober. He apologized for just not being honest with me and leading me on like he did. He wished he could go back and be truthful because I, out of everyone, would have been the most accepting of him being gay. He said he missed me when he left because even though he didn't love me romantically, I was his best friend. It was a lot to take in. I told him while I'm glad he's okay and is doing better, I prefer for us to not have any contact moving forward, but I do forgive him. He said he understood and he was only in town for a few more days, and then he'd be gone for good again. I'll admit, when I got home, I cried. My boyfriend held me and ordered my favorite takeout. He's been really the best and didn't pressure me to talk about anything until I was ready. So if I got anything out of the worst day of my life, it's led me to who I'm with now.
I had to treat my own daughter after a car accident last night because of a drunk driver. I, 39 male, am a paramedic. I've seen some crazy as well as scary stuff working as a paramedic. Last night was for sure the worst. It was 10 p.m. getting close to the end of my shift. We got a 911 call about a car accident. When we got the call, I had a bad feeling and I didn't know why. Then when we got to the scene, I found out it was my daughter's 16 car that got hit. She was in critical condition and we had to take her ASAP. All of her vitals were low and then her heart stopped. We had to revive her. She made it to the hospital. She had 8 broken ribs, which caused a collapsed lung and broken blood vessels, causing her heart to go into sudden cardiac arrest. She also suffered a spinal injury, and doctors aren't sure if she'll be able to walk again. They put her in a medically induced coma to give her body rest. The man who hit her was driving drunk. The only injuries he suffered were a broken wrist and some bruises. It is so unfair that my sweet 16-year-old daughter, who was just on her way home from work, has to suffer when the drunk driver suffers from only minor injuries. I see it all the time and it's so unfair. I just needed to get this rant off my chest.
Am I the asshole for manspreading on a plane? A few weeks ago, I, 26 male, was on a flight in between 2 women. I'm tall and never comfortable on planes. My knees always dig into the seat in front and it can be painful. I forgot to stretch my legs prior and it was even less space because it was Spirit Airlines. After half an hour after takeoff, I found my left knee inching to the side for a sweet relief of open space. Just the no man's land in between seats, but I might have been occupying some of their space. After 2 hours, the woman in the window seat called over the flight attendant. She said something like, "Could you tell him to keep his effing leg in his own effing seat?" Am I the asshole for manspreading on a plane? I instantly retracted my leg in deep shame. She also made a snide reference about the idea that spreading your legs is about male down there comfort. I was shocked into silence and obviously tried to apologize. She refused to speak to me and acted like she didn't hear me. Instead, she furiously texted on her phone. The woman in the aisle seat said she had some extra space on her side that I could use, but then promptly went to sleep. I tried again to apologize to window seat woman, but she ignored me. I kept replaying it on why she didn't simply ask me to move my knee instead of calling the attendant. I even sneaked a peek on her phone, and part of what she was writing was about me.
With new Cascade Platinum Plus, I load this and get this. Dare to dish differently.
Am I the asshole for keeping my girlfriend up because she locked me out of our shared bedroom? I, male 30, perpetually have trouble sleeping and sometimes will need to get up from the bed and try sleeping in a different bedroom. My girlfriend 30 female is a light sleeper, so this can cause problems when I enter and exit the room. I try as best as I can to be quiet, but sometimes I can be clumsy or not light on my feet, causing her to wake up. Usually I sleep in my office to avoid coming in and out, and we also have 2 spare bedrooms, so sleeping arrangements aren't the problem. Well, last night I thought I was actually going to be able to sleep, so decided to sleep with her. Keep in mind she had work the next morning. Am I the asshole for keeping my girlfriend up because she locked me out of our shared bedroom? After about 10 minutes of laying beside her, I felt I was too hungry to sleep, so I went to the kitchen to make some food. I accidentally banged a pot and a cupboard, which caused her to yell at me. After which, I heard her lock the door of our shared bedroom. I pay both of our rent, and I felt like her taking control of the shared bedroom was unfair and disrespectful. I demanded she let me in, and she responded that I should sleep somewhere else because I won't be able to sleep and she won't be able to sleep. She could just as easily use a spare room if she has trouble sleeping. After pounding on the door, she let me in, but she left the room and now she's mad. Am I the asshole for not telling my wife to tone down her dancing at our wedding? My wife and I got married last weekend. We've been together since the first year of uni and got married on the 10-year anniversary of the day I asked her to be my girlfriend. My wife is half Spanish, and we incorporated a lot of Spanish traditions into our wedding. It also meant that with all her family there, the reception turned into quite the party. I was pretty tired after dancing, so I went to sit with my family and my wife kept dancing. My mom and aunt essentially told me they weren't pleased with my wife's dancing to songs like Low and Sexy Back. They said her slut drops and wiggling her bottom like that weren't appropriate on her wedding day. Am I the asshole for not telling my wife to tone down her dancing at her wedding? My aunt and mom told me that I should tell her to tone it down, but I saw nothing wrong with it and she was having such a fun time with her friends. So I told him it wasn't my place and we ended up wrapping up the party soon after anyway. The morning after, my family mentioned to my wife that she was pleased that I eventually got her to tone down the fiesta. My wife asked what she meant and she told her about the conversation. My wife apologized and later told me that I should have let her know that my family was offended by her dancing. I apologized that she was embarrassed, but she wasn't doing anything wrong. I'm mad at my mom and aunt and want them to apologize to us.
Am I wrong for threatening to kick my dad out of my wedding because he kept apologizing to his fiancée whose birthday it was? My dad has been with Marissa for about 2 years and they just got engaged. I don't have much of a relationship with her as she isn't a pleasant person. I don't know Marissa's birthday and don't see why I would be expected to, but my wedding ended up falling on her birthday. When my dad found out the date, I could tell he was stressed. He says she has a lot of trauma and he feels so guilty spending her birthday at my wedding. I didn't say much and figured we could work it out. Well, my wedding was last weekend. I'm not sure if Marissa was upset or not. She is very stoic, so I don't know, but my dad kept apologizing. When they first arrived and he came to see me in the bridal room, he brought her for some reason. And as they walked in, I could hear him say sorry and ask me if she was okay. Right before the ceremony, he had her on his lap and gag. At my wedding, Dad, no. Ugh. Right before the ceremony, he had her on his lap and was whispering, but I could hear it. He was saying he wished she would open her birthday presents, and she was like, I just don't want to do it today. But then he said, what if she opens them and he buys new ones for the day they celebrate? Ugh, ew, this guy is so whipped for her. Then my grandma came over and tried to give her a gift, and he was just so annoying about it. Final straw was during the reception. Marissa was complaining to my grandma how she hates chocolate cake, the only cake he had, and my dad took her in his arms and was asking if she wanted to go out later and get some, and again apologized. I finally snapped and yelled at him, if my wedding was such a burden, take the child he is dating and get the fuck out. I meant because of her actions. There isn't really a big age gap. He looked horrified and I was like, well, go. My grandma immediately began to berate me that I am awful and he paid for the wedding. He asked if I really wanted him to go and I told him to either shut the fuck up about her birthday or go. He stayed but was cold the rest of the night, and I heard Marissa and my grandma joking about how he should rip up the check he gave me for how I spoke to him. I don't know if I overreacted as he was just having empathy for his fiancée. He's a whip. That's not empathy. He's whipped. I, 22 male, broke up with my girlfriend, 21 female, over her body count. Just as the title says, a couple of months ago, me and my girlfriend, now ex of 5 months, were talking at a party and we were both a bit drunk and she started asking me about my past. She knew I was only in one relationship before her, but she was also really interested in my sexual history, so I jokingly agreed to answer anything as long as she did the same. Oh! You don't ask. This is why you don't ask these questions. This is why you don't ask these questions. Danger, danger, danger. Now, I've only slept with 3 people in my life, including her, and I knew that she had only been in one serious relationship before me, so I expected her answer to be about the same. But she admitted that she had slept with 24 people before me. I thought she was joking, but she explained in greater detail, and it was clear she was 100% serious. At that point, I wasn't in the mood for any more partying, so I headed home for the night. 24 bodies at 21? That's wild! Wild! I couldn't sleep thinking about it, and I can't really explain why it bothers me so much, but I knew this was something I wasn't getting over, so when she woke up, I went to her apartment and broke up with her. She started breaking down and asking me to explain why. I really didn't want to tell her, but she kept asking for an explanation, and I thought it would be unfair not to tell her, so I told her, and she started breaking down even more and apologizing to me, which made me feel super guilty. I kept telling her she didn't have to apologize to me as she didn't do anything wrong, and she asked me why I was breaking up with her then, and I honestly didn't know what to answer. Eventually she calmed down and I headed home, but she's been bombarding me with messages, still apologizing me and telling me that if she could turn back time, she would have never touched any of those guys and that she regrets it. I believe I'm justified in leaving her since I know that this isn't something I can get over and that I'll never see her the same, but I still feel super guilty about it all, especially since I can't really explain why it bothers me so much. I wish I didn't care about it at all, so we could have just kept being happy together. But 25 people? I just don't know what to do. I feel really guilty for feeling this way, and even more because I know she's suffering for something she can't change now. I'm also checking in on her to make sure she's okay and trying to comfort her the best I can, but now I'm thinking that maybe it's cruel of me to do that because it'll make it harder for her on the long run, and that maybe it's better for her if I stay more distant. I am at a loss as to what to do, or if it was fair for me to break up with her over this. I just wanted to rant about my situation somewhere since I don't really have anyone else to talk about this, and this is all I could think of. Any input is appreciated. Okay, he does have an edit. He goes, seems important to mention that she, me, and the people around us come from a religious background and that we date to marry. This isn't an assumption. We had the intentions of going old together. A lot of people are asking why I didn't ask this before. This is because it is seen as rude to ask about things you've done that include other people. Am I wrong for refusing to take my daughter to my ex-husband's wedding? My 42 female, ex-husband 45 male and I were together for 20 years. We had a beautiful daughter together, Jocelyn 14 female. We got a divorce 5 years ago due to infidelity on his part. I was devastated. He was the love of my life and he betrayed all of the trust and loyalty we had built up. To make matters worse, he ended up in a relationship with the woman he cheated on me with. They got engaged 1 year later and are set to be married in 2 weeks. Honestly, I still am heartbroken over my divorce. It's hurtful to me that we were together for 20 years and he could just go fall in love with someone else as if I was nothing. However, Jocelyn was only 9 when we divorced and he's a great father, so I would never want to come in between their bond. Jocelyn loves his fiancée and she's very sweet to her, but she doesn't know the reason why her dad and I divorced. I want to tell her when she's a bit older and he doesn't want to tell her at all. Duh, of course he doesn't. Anyways, I compromised with him that Jocelyn could come to the wedding, but that he would have to provide the transportation to and from the wedding, as I want no part of it. I don't want to drop my daughter off at his wedding. I don't want to see all the decorations and the happy guests. It'd just be too much for me. I didn't tell him all of that obviously, but he agreed. Today he calls me and says if he can ask for a huge favor. It turns out that his future in-laws are flying in the morning of the wedding and he has to go pick them up. Therefore, he can't pick up my daughter the day of and wanted to ask if I could take her. I said absolutely not and asked why he can't pick her up the day before when she gets off of school. He said he doesn't want to make the drive twice and that he will likely not have time as he has to prepare for the rehearsal dinner. I asked why can't the bride pick up her parents. He said she'll be getting her hair done and won't be able to. I laughed and told him there was no way I'd take my daughter and he'd have to figure it out. Boy, why did I say that? My daughter ran downstairs crying, face beet red 10 minutes after my conversation with her dad, calling me terrible and accusing me of not wanting her to spend time with her dad. I told her that's not the case and she demanded to know why I couldn't take her. I couldn't give her an answer and she ran upstairs crying. Now I'm getting messages from his family calling me heartless and cold and a bitch for trying to ruin his special day over a relationship that is long over. I'm sorry, look at all these people messaging you. They can pick her up, right? Hello, problem solved. But they won't. My family understands my point of view, but I feel terrible that I've upset my daughter. I don't know what to do. Am I the asshole? Should I just put aside my feelings and take her?
Am I the asshole for trying to control my girlfriend's money? I, 29 male, hate debt. It's nothing but a weight around your ankles keeping you from moving ahead with your life. I was lucky enough to get scholarships for most of college and paid off the loans I did have to get ASAP. I did go ahead and buy a new car for the increased safety features, but only have a few thousand left on the loan because, again, aggressively paying it off. I just bought a house because a mortgage is half of what my old apartment rent was, but I plan on being aggressive with this too, and hopefully have it paid off in a fraction of the time. Long story short, I hate debt. It makes me anxious and feel physically sick. My girlfriend, 29, on the other hand, has a ton of debt and doesn't really care. She has student loans, her car, and her credit card, and is making the bare minimum payments so she has extra money to play with each month. Because I do love her, and I could theoretically see myself spending my life with her, I made her a deal. She could live in my house, rent, grocery, and utility free until her debts were paid off. With her salary, it would take her about a year and a half to pay it all off, if she put the max amount towards them. It would then become our house and she would help make half the payment so we could be on more equal footing. She accepted this without question and we sat down to look over her finances, budget, pay stubs, and everything so we could make a more comprehensive plan. Well, the other day her cell rang when she was in the shower, so I picked it up. Turns out it's a debt collector. I confronted her about this when she got out, dressed, since it's been a few months and she should have been able to pay off at least the smallest loan in full. And it turns out she just stopped paying everything. Let everything go into default since you'll just pay it when we're married. I then made it very clear that we aren't getting married anytime soon. Not until her debt was gone, and she knows my stance on keeping long-term debt. This upset her. She started yelling at me and I made it very clear she had 3 options. Follow our deal and pay off her debt, pay me back for the last few months I've apparently funded her lifestyle, or leave and go stay with her brother. Huffy, she packed a bag and left, saying we'd talk about this when I'd calm down. I made it clear there's nothing to talk about and I'd have her stuff packed by morning. The last few hours, however, the entire family's called. Our mutual friends have called. Everyone's called to put in their 2 cents on how I'm being controlling over her money. So, am I the asshole for trying to control my girlfriend's money? Let me know your thoughts.
For my next trick, I will get a real offer to sell this car in less than 2 minutes.
It's not really magic. Just an instant online offer from CarMax, good for 7 days. Great crowd.
CarMax, car selling reimagined.
Am I the asshole for being too close to my ex-husband? 6 years ago, I got divorced from my now ex-husband. There was no drama that led to this. We simply realized we were no longer happy or in love, and it would have been a clean break had it not been for the fact that we have a daughter who is now 11. Neither of us wanted to lose full custody or miss important moments in her life. She is the most important person in both of our lives, and we debated on trying to make it work just for her, but realized that would only lead the 3 of us to become miserable, so we entered an arrangement that many would view as unconventional. When we sold our house, we used the money to buy 2 semi-detached houses that were joined and had a door installed between them. The construction company tried to warn us against this as it would affect the resale value, but neither of us had any intention to sell, so we had them go ahead with it. Also had them take down the fence between both of our backyards so our daughter would have an even extra large backyard to play in. We have an agreement regarding the door. It is strictly for our daughter's use, and neither of us can use it barring any emergencies for a fire, medical, or something being wrong with our daughter. And won't lie, it was awkward at first, but for her sake we made it work and even regained a lot of the friendship we had lost, though of course it was strictly platonic now. Last year my ex-husband married his girlfriend of 3 years, a lovely woman who I'm actually friends with. All in all, it's an arrangement everyone is content with except for my boyfriend who I'd started dating 2 years ago. I understood the arrangement entering into the relationship, and while he said it was a bit weird, he never protested and all seemed well. Things are getting more serious and we've been discussing moving in together. He's made it clear he wants me to move as he doesn't want to live next door to my ex-husband. I understood that, but I told him that wouldn't be happening as my daughter had to come first and our arrangement gave her a stable upbringing. He got upset with me and asked me how he was supposed to be a father to my daughter when she already had a dad who was literally a wall away. I told him gently but firmly that he wasn't her father and she already had one, and even his father's wife didn't try to be a mom. He told me if I loved him, I'd move for him, and despite me telling him that I do love him, he isn't listening. So, am I the asshole? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Would I be the asshole if I didn't give back the inheritance my ex-fiance left me to his family? My ex-fiance passed away 2 months ago. A couple days ago, I found out he left all of his fortune to me. His family is now very angry with me. I'm not sure if I have any obligations to return the money to his family. I met him 15 years ago. He was 35 and I was 28. He was a very shy and awkward kind of guy. His mother, his sister, and his sister's children were his world. When he turned 30, he had already told his family that he had given up hope in meeting his partner and that he promised he was dedicating his life to his sister and her children. He was starting up a promising business and he was going to take care of his nephews. When we met, it was love at first sight. He's the love of my life. His mother and sisters hated me from the get-go. Our personalities clashed, yes, but the main reason was because they thought he had broken his promise should he start a family. We moved in, we got engaged and set the date, but unfortunately we broke up, and I want to say it was 99% because of his family's interference and him not siding with me. We broke up after 12 years together. During that time we were together, my ex-fiance's business took off and he became very wealthy. When we broke up, he left me our apartment that he bought. That didn't sit well with his mother, who harassed me to the point of sending men I didn't know to wait outside of the building to threaten me. I wasn't having any of it. I gave him back the keys and moved to my hometown. Now he left me all of his fortune. We never really stopped loving each other, and he regretted not protecting me, but it was too late to reconcile. I just wanted to run from that horrible family. Now his sister is saying that money is hers and her son's. I don't know, but I feel if he wanted to give it to them, he wouldn't have put me in his will. From what I understood from his solicitor, he had no contact with his family after our breakup. My best friends think I would be the asshole if I kept the money.
Let's try to clean this crusty waffle iron.
Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Am I the asshole for
Take a
telling my wife
dishwasher
I can't
tablet.
trust her after she didn't text me
Just
about
kidding.
towels? For context, me and my wife are in our 30s.
A lot of you told me to buy
last
Ajax.
year and had aphasia as a side effect and passes normal to most people.
It smells really
Since the
good.
stroke, our communication
Scrub,
is worse.
scrub, scrub.
Sometimes when I talk to her, she says I'm mean and cries, but I have no idea why. Well, today I took my kids to swim class, but when I got there, I realized I forgot towels. I texted my wife and she offered to go home and get towels and bring them to me. I thanked her, got the kids in the pool, then
Inside
called her,
done.
but she said she was still at work because someone
Time
was
for the
blocking her in.
outside.
She said her coworkers were getting her towels and she'd be there as soon as possible.
Ups.
Am I the asshole
I
for telling
scratched
my
the
wife I
paint
can't
off.
trust her after she
Back
didn't
to
text
scrub
me about
daddy.
towels? I didn't hear from her for 15 minutes and thought about asking the front for towels, but didn't know if she was coming. She brought the towels, we talked, and she left, and I didn't say much because I was upset. When she got home, she offered to finish dinner and put down the kids, and I said okay. I also asked if it was okay to talk and told her I feel like I can't trust her. Because when I ask her to do something, she won't update me if there are any unforeseen circumstances. She said she didn't blame me, but it hurt her feelings that I would complain when she worked so hard to get the towels. I told her that I thanked her immediately, and she also said something sarcastic like, "And you're welcome for coming home and taking the kids." And I said, "Don't do me any favors." Am I the asshole for going off on my wife for commenting about our 3-week-old daughter's looks? My daughter, our second child, is 3 weeks old. Pre-pregnancy, my wife was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder and depression. And now, after birthing our baby girl, she's experiencing postpartum. Our first child, our son, looks so much like my wife, and she's a looker, so my son is so cute. Our daughter, on the other hand, looks a bit more like me. Her hairline kind of has a widow's peak, her lips are relatively thin, and her nose is a little larger. Well, nearly every day, my wife has made comments to our baby girl about how she's sad that she got daddy's features. Am I the asshole for going off on my wife for commenting about our 3-week-old daughter's looks? Here are just some things she said to our baby girl. "Don't worry, I'll get you a nose job as soon as you're old enough. My family is beautiful and all the women are timeless, and your dad's family, not so much. And your brother has a beautiful pouty lip and you got stuck with those pencil lips." I went off on her and said I don't care if she can't understand, I understand, and so can our son. She's 3 weeks old and perfect and noble, and she needs to stop projecting. Her own mom used to make comments about her appearance as well, so why would she do it? Am I wrong? Am I the asshole for kicking my son's girlfriend out of our house? My husband, 58 male, and I, 56 female, recently met my son's 24 male girlfriend for the first time. He's crazy about her, and apparently they've been dating for a year. Everything that he shared with us about her seems great, and I'm honestly just glad that he's happy. So last weekend, he brought her over for dinner, and we've been anticipating meeting her. They ring the doorbell, open the door, and she looks exactly like her pictures, which is a good start. My son is grinning ear to ear, another good start. We invite them in, and she accepts my hug and a firm handshake from my husband. Then she opens her mouth and says, "I'm the one your son puts his you-know-what in." Ugh! Am I the asshole for kicking my son's girlfriend out of our house? I was appalled but expected my husband to laugh. Maybe I'm reserved, but of all things she could have shared about my son, she said that? One look at my face and my husband knew how much I disapproved. Maybe I let my expectations get too high and it's unfair to have them, but I reiterate, of all things to say. At first my son was amused until he realized my reaction. I felt like he sold me the full package and everything he'd always wanted in a girlfriend. I was too disturbed by the visual and it translated into anger. I told her to get out and my son asked for another chance, but I was too fed up and uncomfortable. Even my husband, who enjoys raunchy jokes, wouldn't let
Did you know most dish soaps don't remove all the grease, even with scrubbing?
What? I just cleaned those.
Try Dawn Platinum. It removes 99% of grease and food residue. That's why Dawn is trusted to save wildlife affected by oil. Dawn Platinum cleans to the squeak.
Today, my wife met my girlfriend. I, 32 male, am a widow. My wife passed away from pancreatic cancer 5 years ago. She was forced to leave behind our 2 kids, R, 10 male, and H, 7 male. My wife was the absolute light of my life. We were high school sweethearts, went to the same college, and got married after graduation. We were inseparable. Every day, I fell more in love with her. It was like my heart was living outside my body. When she passed, the amount of pain I was in was indescribable. I prayed to go to sleep and not wake up just so I could see her one last time. I contemplated meeting her, but every time I was ready, my kids would look at me. They had her face, her personality, her DNA. I couldn't leave them. They were all I had left of her. It took years before I was able to function normally again. I even quit my job and lived off of savings from her life insurance for about a year. I was half the dad I used to be and only a fraction of my former self. 2 years after her passing, I decided enough was enough and I kicked myself into gear. I found a job in a different city, closer to my parents. I packed my kids up and I moved. Life was hard, but I kept chugging along and eventually I found some joy. A year after moving, I took a business trip to New York where I met my current girlfriend, Elle. While I acknowledged there was chemistry, I told her I was already married and she understood. However, a few months later, I had to go back to New York where we met up again. I let my guard down for the first time around her. Before I knew it, she was putting in a transfer from my home branch and moving to my city. I fell in love with her and asked her out a year ago next month. My kids adore her, and though she reminded them she will never take their mom's place, they love calling her Mama Elle. Today was the anniversary of my wife's passing, an extremely hard day for all of us. This morning, I walked into the living room to find Elle and my kids waiting for me. The kids were dressed in their church clothes with goofy smiles on their faces and bouquets in hand. Apparently, Elle came up with the idea of a picnic at my wife's grave, an idea that the boys loved as they enjoy going to see their mom. While I was sleeping, they prepared food and flowers, then insisted on wearing their best clothes. I'll admit that I cried at the sight of them. I don't know how I got this lucky twice in a row. I wanted my wife to meet this amazing woman, so I asked Elle to come along, and she did. The day that I dread every...
Growing up, my mom
turned out to be a holy reminder of the reason why I stayed on this planet. To my lovely wife, you can never be replaced, but she is good to me and she takes care of our kids like you would. Thank you for sending her to me. Stop! I'm gonna cry! I gotta end the video! I'm gonna cry! I told my fiance I don't really want to marry her anymore. My 26 male fiance, Sarah, 24 female, and I are set to get married in 3 months. We were visiting a botanical garden yesterday. When Sarah pointed out a flower called the Arabian jasmine, a little white flower with a nice scent. She said that her cousin Stephanie had those at her wedding. I asked if it was the same Stephanie that would be in attendance with her husband at our wedding, and she said it was. Sarah and Stephanie are apparently pretty close, and she started telling me about Stephanie and her husband. At one point, she told me that Stephanie had actually cheated on her husband twice before they got married, and that the second time was a couple of months before the actual wedding. Her husband never found out. I asked her why she never told Stephanie's husband about what happened, and she responded by saying it wasn't her circus and wasn't her monkeys, and that it's not a big of a deal anyways since they weren't married at the time. I've been thinking about what she said ever since. I considered cheating the ultimate worst betrayal in a relationship. Clearly my fiance doesn't think so since she said her cousin cheating wasn't that big of a deal since they weren't married. Would this mean that she thinks cheating on me right now wouldn't be that big of a deal since we aren't married yet? As a man, if I got cheated on by my partner, I hope someone who knew would tell me about it. I would heavily judge anyone who knew about it, didn't tell me, let me go on to marry the person that cheated on me, and attend my wedding as if nothing was wrong, like my fiance did to her cousin's husband. About an hour ago, I texted my fiance, I'm not sure if I can go forward with getting married. Let's talk in person later tonight. She's been blowing up my phone with texts and missed calls ever since. I'm just going to tell her what I've said in this post when I see her.
Want a smarter way to mop? Introducing the new Swiffer Power Mop. An all-in-one cleaning tool with hundreds of scrubbing strips that absorb and lock dirt away for a mop and bucket clean in half the time. Mop smarter with the new Swiffer Power Mop.
Am I wrong for making homemade food for everyone except for my brother's stepdaughter? I, 27 female, am not a professional chef, but I've taken a bunch of cooking classes and love making elaborate meals for friends and family. About 2 years ago, my brother Greg, 25 male, married Cheryl, 34 female. Cheryl has a daughter from a previous relationship, Becca, 9 female, who has several health conditions, including celiac and a severe dairy allergy that requires her to carry an EpiPen. Last weekend, I hosted a dinner at my house for my parents' wedding anniversary. I made a fancy 5-course dinner, and in addition to my parents, I invited our close family friends. Greg, Cheryl, and Becca, and my sister, her boyfriend, and their twins, both ate. Because of Becca's food restrictions, I found a restaurant in town that specializes in gluten-free, dairy-free, as well as other allergen-free food and arranged for them to make a full meal for Becca that I could pick up in advance of the party. I have made a variety of specialty meals in the past. For example, keto meals when my friend was following that diet, and I liked the challenge, but knowing how serious Becca's restrictions were, I didn't trust myself to make her meal. I have ADHD and get easily distracted, and if I even used the wrong spoon or didn't completely wash some flour off a bowl, it could make her incredibly sick. I thought the takeout solution was fine, but when I served the food, I saw Cheryl looking at Becca's plate with a stony face. For her part, Becca started eating and seemed fine. Cheryl whispered to Greg, and Greg asked if he could talk to me in the kitchen. When we got there, he said that it was unbelievable that I couldn't be bothered to make something for Becca, that they've been bragging about what a great cook I am to her, and that he knew I'd made keto, vegan, and other complicated kind of foods in the past. Now she would feel left out because she didn't get to eat what the rest of the family was eating. He said that it was obvious that I didn't care about making his stepdaughter feel like a part of the family and that they were leaving. Greg, Cheryl, and Becca then left, which put a damper on the rest of the party. I feel like I did my best at the time, but in hindsight, I wonder if I should have tried harder to make Becca feel included since she was a relatively new addition to our family. So, am I the asshole? I feel like guys, when a girl tells them something, they don't use their own brain to think, and they just like, okay, yeah, you're right, and they just he didn't step back to think like, wow, that's actually really considerate of her to go get my stepdaughter a meal and still continue to feed everyone else. You don't have to do shit, realistically, right? And especially when you have a food allergy, it's your job to take care of that person. I broke up with my boyfriend over the Tubi Super Bowl commercial. I, 23 female, broke up with my boyfriend, 25 male, over the reaction he had to me over the commercial. For those of you who are unaware, during the Super Bowl commercials, Tubi, a streaming app, played a prank where they made it look like someone was changing the TV over to their app. I'm sure that in many households it caused chaos and was a funny event, but not in mine. My boyfriend thought I was the one changing the channel and began screaming at me violently, calling me things that I don't even want to write down. Even as I told him it was a commercial, he ignored me and kept blowing up at me and punched a hole in our living room wall. He eventually realized what actually happened and awkwardly apologized, but I was so disgusted over his reaction to a 15-second commercial. I feel like if you can't keep your anger in check and get that violent over something so small, I don't want to be around for it. We'd been together for over a year, living together for the past 2 months, and I've known him to get angry at things sometimes, but this really took me off guard, and I can't forget how unsafe I felt around him during this. In the morning, I took some of my things and I'm now staying at my parents' house. I left him a note telling him how I felt and that I didn't think we were going to work out long term. He's been messaging me and calling me repeatedly. My parents told me that I'm overreacting since he had a bit to drink and the Super Bowl gets everyone riled up, but I don't feel that I am. I don't think it's normal to be that angry. Oh my god, good for you for getting out of that when you can. When people show you who they are, listen to them. Who would have thought Tubi would be saving people's lives long term? What a relationship test.
Am I the asshole for calling off the wedding after my fiance got an abortion? My fiance and I have been together since we were in high school, class of 2011. We met freshman year, and I told her right off the bat I wanted kids. Being a father meant so much to me, and I was not willing to be with anybody who didn't see themselves being a mom. She told me she didn't want kids, so we stopped talking. She came back into my life about a year after graduation, saying that she had matured and wanted kids, and she wanted to start over. After that, we were together and happy. We got engaged July 2021. We were very excited about the wedding and became even more excited when she told me that she was pregnant. She seemed very happy and excited about it. When we went to her first official appointment, she asked the doctor about abortions, terminations, etc. This rubbed me the wrong way, so when we got into the car, I asked her about it, and she claimed that she was asking out of curiosity. Half of the wedding was already paid for, and it was a lot of money into it, so I let it go. 3 days after the appointment, my fiance approached me and told me she didn't want the baby. I laughed at first because I thought she was kidding, but she was dead serious. She told me she was only carrying the baby to make me happy, and she never wanted to be a parent. I was livid. I told her that she should have never come back into my life and said she wanted a baby if that isn't what she wanted. I told her that I was fine without her and I'm doing good for myself. I told her if she gets an abortion, I'm leaving and I won't look back. She used the "my body, my choice" shirt too. Am I the asshole for calling off my wedding after my fiance got an abortion? I told her if she gets an abortion, I'm leaving and I won't look back. She used the "my body, my choice" shit. And I told her that's not fair. We are a partnership and those decisions we make together. After that argument, she told me she was getting an abortion and there was nothing I could do about it. She told me she wanted me to be there with her when she got it done, but I told her no. Still thinking she was kidding. But she returned with a sheet of paper after she got it done. I was so upset I just wanted to scream and yell at her. But I just took my ring, sat it on the table gently. I told her I had a business trip and she had until I returned home from my trip to have her shit out of my house. While I was on my trip, I got my deposits and money back for everything, including her dress and the venue. She was so upset she called me crying, saying I was an asshole for leaving her and exceeding her medical right to choose. I told her if she thinks that's why I'm leaving, then she's as dumb as a bag of bricks, and I blocked her. So, am I the asshole for calling off my wedding after my fiance got an abortion? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Am I the asshole for not catering to my ex and his fiance's needs? My ex-husband and I have split custody of my son. I get him half the week. My ex got engaged to someone before our divorce was finalized, and soon after she was pregnant. She already had a child from a previous relationship, so that tallies my ex's kids to a total of 3. Ever since having the baby, they've had many struggles financially, on top of them being exhausted and having complicated schedules due to work. They've dropped hints that they need help with money and are using me as a way of getting a break by having me take my child on days they are feeling overwhelmed. I don't mind having him extra, but knowing why they are giving me more time with him is disrespectful in my opinion. Not only that, but they have their other child wearing clothes that I bought for mine. I feel like they are taking advantage of me, and they also ask if their child can stay over because he's jealous mine gets to be here. I want to have a talk with them, but I fear I may be overreacting. My boyfriend agrees, but my family thinks I shouldn't say anything. I've never been in a situation like this. So, am I the asshole for not catering to my ex and his fiance's needs? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Am I the asshole for sleeping with my dead wife's best friend after her...
Swiffer Sweeper dry cloths grab dust and hair and lock it away. Better than a broom. Love it or your money back.
I, 36 male, have been married to my now deceased wife, 35 female, for 7 years. We are your typical high school sweethearts. We were each other's first everything. We met in 10th grade and it was like an instant spark. However, when my wife went to college, she met her best friend, 34 female. We got on like a house on fire. Fast forward 9 years, me and my wife are happily married. Right after my 30th birthday, we started trying for a baby. We were struggling to get pregnant and we blamed it on ovulation. A year later, we went to a fertility clinic where they referred us to the hospital where my wife was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. This came as a shock and she was declining quickly. After the first 5 months of her diagnosis, she was already bedbound. Her best friend would come by every day to see her without fail. I admired how caring she was. Her best friend and I took great comfort in one another. We were both losing our best friend. She started coming by the house to check on me. I would see her more than my own family. One night, shortly before my wife died, we were drinking and one thing led to another. I didn't realize what I had done until the next. Part 2. Am I the asshole for sleeping with my dead wife's best friend after her funeral? One night, shortly before my wife died, we were drinking and one thing led to another. I didn't realize what I had done until the next morning. We both agreed that it was a mistake and it would never happen again. A short while later, my wife sadly passed away. It destroyed me, but I planned her funeral as quick as possible. The ceremony was beautiful. All of her favorite things were there. I honestly couldn't contain myself for the whole funeral. While everyone was making their speeches, I had to go outside. It was too overwhelming. She quickly followed me and I went to the bathroom for a tissue. She followed me in and one thing led to another. I couldn't stop thinking about how my wife would have felt the whole time. People were getting suspicion and questioning us both on where we were. Ever since the funeral, we've been secretly hooking up. My family and my wife's family have confronted me on how close me and my wife's best friend are. Her brother saw that my wife's best friend was sending me flirty text messages. He confronted me about it and her family won't speak to me. I miss my wife. However, I want to make it official. But at what cost? So am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for canceling my girlfriend's tattoo appointment? My girlfriend has OCD and one symptom she experiences is her doing everything in 5 seconds. For context, her mother passed away in March of 2018. Well, in January, she brought up getting a tattoo for the 5th anniversary of her mother's death. I suggested she talk to her therapist about it, and after doing so, her therapist said it wasn't a good idea. She believed that the drive behind her wanting to get the tattoo was her OCD rather than actually wanting it. However, my girlfriend still went ahead and booked the appointment. After talking with a couple of friends, they agreed it wasn't a good idea to make such a permanent decision. Am I the asshole for canceling my girlfriend's tattoo appointment? If she had somewhat recovered from her OCD, I wouldn't be so hesitant, but she hasn't made any progress. I emailed the tattooist and canceled her appointment. I told her an hour before the appointment and she had booked the last slot for the day. So she was unable to get it done and I knew she was going to be upset, but I didn't realize how upset she was going to be. It's been a couple weeks and it's crazy how she reacted, but I'm more than certain that she will be happy in the future. It's clear that it was OCD influenced as it has flared up a bit because of it and she's aware of that too. And she said not being able to get it on that anniversary makes her physically sick. Am I the asshole for lying that my dad was having an affair to prove that my stepmom reads my diary? My 16 female stepmom, 40 female Ariel is very immature and honestly acts like a 9-year-old. She's the type who makes fun of someone for wearing glasses or having a hearing aid. And to top it off, she also says bigoted things. Well, I found out that she's been reading my diary because she said that I wrote rude things about her cousin Loretta and tried to punish me over it. My dad just told me to respect adults and said nothing about reading my diary. I've also moved it multiple times, but she keeps finding it and reading it. And I know she's doing it because she says things she'd only know if she was actively reading my diary. Am I the asshole for lying that my dad was having an affair to prove that my stepmom reads my diary? I've told my dad that she's reading my diary and he won't do a thing. He just says, "Oh, you don't know that Ariel reads your diary," when she clearly does. I got fed up, so I tried talking to Ariel one more time about respecting my privacy. I then wrote in my diary that I caught my dad having an affair with our neighbor Michael. She read my diary the next day and freaked out and yelled at my dad, went to Michael's house, yelled at Michael, and then drove off. My family on my mom and stepdad's side of the family thinks it's super funny and told me I taught Ariel an overdue lesson. But on my dad's side, they're furious. Am I the asshole for not letting a mom with a baby in front of me and telling an elderly lady to F off? I went to a shop today and service there was really slow and only one register was open. There was a really long line of people with majority of them having full carts of items, but I only had one item. Behind me was an elderly lady and a mom with a baby. The older lady started telling the mom to skip the queue and go in front because she's with the child. I turned to her and asked her to speak for herself and that I do not agree that the mom skips in front of me. So of course we argue and I say that she should wait like everybody else. And if she's unable because of the baby, she shouldn't have brought the baby to the store. Am I the asshole for not letting a mom with a baby in front of me and telling an elderly lady to F off? The elderly lady said she never saw behavior like this and I'll understand when I have my own kid. I corrected her and said if, then she started telling me that my life will be horrible if I don't and how I lack empathy. So I told her to F off and the older woman and her mom kept talking about me and my behavior. The mom then complained how she feels uncomfortable existing in a public space because of people like me. I have no problem with kids. But in this situation, why should she have a privilege to skip a line just because the baby popped out? It's not like the baby was screaming or anything. Am I wrong?
Mr. Clean Magic Eraser powers through tough messes, so it makes it look like I spent hours cleaning. And you know I didn't.
It makes my running shoe look like new. It's amazing.
It's so good, makes it look like I have magical powers.
Magic Eraser and sheets make cleaning look easy.
My ex's life is ruined and I feel great about it. I, 22 female, have been dating my now ex, 27 male, for over 5 years. We met thanks to a friend who is very active in her church and kept pestering me to go with her to check out her church. Now, I'm not a religious person at all, but I was very close to this friend and decided to go with her so I'd have a reason to hang out after school. He was a very popular and very active member of the church. He was also very attractive, so I didn't think much of it when he asked for my number so he can keep in contact in case I wanted to come back. We started dating, but I grew distant from my friend and eventually stopped going to church, even though he would ask me to join him. A couple of months ago, my friend contacted me and wanted to catch up. We went to the cafe and that's when she revealed to me that he had been cheating on me with another woman from the church. Apparently, my friend had approached her when she found out about it, thinking she probably didn't know he was in a relationship. She told my friend that it didn't matter, since I wasn't a member of our church, our relationship didn't count, and that he'd be better off dating a real Christian. I wanted to die. I confronted him and he blamed me, saying that I pushed him to do it with my lack of faith and I would never be a good wife. He kicked me out and married her a couple of months after it. I moved back with my parents and that's when I started plotting my revenge with the help of my friend. Now this woman has been struggling with fertility. Part 2. My ex's life is ruined and I feel great about it. Now this woman has been struggling with fertility issues. My friend knew this because the community asked for prayers to help them overcome their issues. I bought a fake pregnancy test, contacted my ex, telling him I didn't want to keep the baby. He talked to her and they were both ecstatic about adopting the baby and finally being able to start their family, calling it a miracle. I even got some fake ultrasounds and they posted them on Facebook. I let them get all excited about this. Then I texted my ex a picture of me inside of an abortion clinic. I was actually there to pick up my birth control and I turned my phone off. After that, I drove to a friend's house and stayed over until the next day. I went back to my house and found my ex waiting for me in his car. He started yelling at me about how I'm a monster for doing something like this and I would rot in hell. I rushed into my house and he started banging on my door, yelling curses and calling me names. My parents saw him yelling and called the cops. He refused to leave and they took him. I didn't hear anything about my ex nor his wife, but I did see both of them took the post down talking about their baby. My friend has told me that people in the church are avoiding him like the plague since they found out he was arrested and his wife has been a mess crying during services. No one else but my friend know about this and I don't feel the slightest bit guilty if I'm honest. Soon everyone will know he's been messing with his stepmother and stepsister. For a little while I've been suspecting my husband of cheating. I didn't have any justification for thinking or feeling this way, but I couldn't stop having this gut feeling that something was wrong. So I decided to keep a close eye on him, and still found nothing. And for a long time I was angry at myself for suspecting him and invading his privacy. We went to marriage counseling and I apologized for breaking his trust in me, and for a little while all was well. I can't believe I apologized to that lying sack of shit. But that wretched feeling never went away. I tried so hard to get over this feeling. He was deceiving me. In some way, but I just couldn't. So I decided it was time to hire a private investigator instead of playing Inspector Gadget myself. And let me tell you, this was the best thing I've ever spent money on. Within a month, the PI was able to confirm my suspicions, but it was a shock to find out that it was his stepmother and his stepsister. Not only that, but he may be the father of his stepsister's newborn baby. I could have killed him, but I kept my composure and kept this information to myself and continued to act as normal as possible. Believe me, that was a very difficult thing to do. I slowly started detaching from him and even moved into our spare bedroom, and we continued to drift apart. Part 2. Soon everyone will know he's been messing with the stepmother and stepsister. I moved out, got a new job, started saving money for our divorce. I got my life in order. Now here we are, almost a year later, in the final stages of our divorce, and I've still not told anyone. I spent the last year preparing for our divorce because I'll be damned if I leave this marriage empty-handed. I wanted to handle our financial affairs first. Because my husband works for his father, I didn't want to leave him unemployed during our divorce process. The son of a cunt dragged out our divorce and taught me on everything, even things that were mine to begin with. But I kept my calm, and I won't say a word until I get everything I deserve. That's when I'll tell his father. And his father's not a man to be messed with. I've been assured the check will clear in 3 days, or less. It's over for Robert, because as soon as the money hits my account, his mother, stepmother, stepsister, brother-in-law, and father will receive a beautifully written email with pictures and videos of what he's been up to. His dad will tear him apart. So count your days, Robert. Update. I got my money. Time to hit send. His stepmother and stepsister don't know about each other.
Febreze. Hate it when a car freshener hits you with an overwhelming blast of perfume? Febreze car vent clips work differently. Febreze gives you consistent freshness that starts just right and stays just right for 40 days. Upgrade to Febreze car.
Am I the asshole for banning my daughter from Easter over a prank? I, 49 female, have a daughter, Susan, 21 female, who was hospitalized for an extreme medical emergency last month. Susan was there for 4 days, and I visited every day until the last, which happened to be on April 1st. On the 1st, her roommate called me crying, saying that Susan's condition suddenly worsened and she passed on. In hindsight, I should have known something was up, but hearing that in the moment turned me into a sobbing wreck. And about a half hour later, Susan and her roommate came into my house shouting April Fools. I didn't know it was possible to be so relieved and pissed at the same time. Am I the asshole for banning my daughter from Easter over a prank?
I called the joke horrible, screamed at her, and told her she was not welcome in my house for the foreseeable future. And apparently she thought Easter would be an exception. I was hosting this year with a few relatives and she came in because she still had a key and I made her give it back. I once again told her to get the hell out of my house, and while she was persistent and very stubborn, she finally left crying. It's not like I'll never forgive her, but I'm just too angry and hurt to speak or look at her right now. She tries to text me and call every day too, but I ignore most of them. The family split with their opinions, so I'm hoping I get some unbiased opinions on this. Am I the asshole for blowing up at my uncle for coming out as trans? My uncle, 64, has been married for 42 years and has 4 kids. Her and her wife have been separated for a few months but are still trying to sort out their differences. Every year around March, the whole family holds a spring banquet. Due to their separation, they arrive separately. My uncle's wife arrived with the kids, and not long after, my uncle showed up. She was wearing a full face of makeup and a dress. At first, everyone thought it was some kind of joke and laughed, but soon realized it wasn't. When we sat down for dinner, she fully came out and said she identified as a woman now. My uncle's wife almost immediately burst into tears and left the room. Her eldest went after her while the rest of us stared at my uncle in shock. Am I the asshole for blowing up at my uncle for coming out as trans? My uncle has expressed not feeling like a man to some of the family, including me. It's why we pushed for her to get a divorce. When they separated, we thought my uncle had finally told her, but come to find out she didn't. Back to the dinner table. My uncle's wife and son had run out and the youngest was in hysterics. So I told her she was a selfish POS and I don't think I could say the next part. She left immediately, but a few days ago, my mother called me and said I took it too far and that my uncle wasn't responding to anyone's calls or texts. I know I was harsh, but it wasn't the right time or place to reveal that, especially when she hadn't told her wife and kids.
Am I wrong for wearing a wedding dress to a wedding? Okay, so like titles like these make me think you're like automatically the asshole because like everyone knows like duh, why would you wear a wedding dress to a wedding? But I feel like there's more we should dissect before we make that decision, right? So my friend, 20 female, and I, 19 male, have been friends for a few years and she recently got engaged. A week ago, I got a DM from her for a small costume party she was hosting as a celebration for her getting engaged. I asked if there was a theme and she said that there wasn't. I'm a cosplayer, so I had a lot of choices. I didn't want to rock up in anime cosplay, so I thought it would be funny to go to an engagement party as the corpse bride. I arrived at her house yesterday and everything seemed normal. A few people complimented my costume and I was having a lot of fun. After 10 minutes, my friend's fiance walked out in a black tuxedo and announced this was actually their wedding. Apparently, my friend saw a video of someone doing this and wanted to do the same. He asked us all to go to the backyard for the ceremony to begin. I went straight to him. I asked him if I should go home quickly and change my outfit and that I would get back before it started. He told me it was fine since I didn't know this was the wedding. I trusted him and followed everyone outside. They got married and everything seemed good. The reception was just in their house again, so everyone just walked back inside and picked up where they left off. I tried talking to my friend and celebrating with her, but she kept making excuses to not talk to me. I assumed it was just because she was tired from the big day and wanted some alone time. I didn't bother her after that, and the party soon ended. I got home and half an hour passed when my phone started getting notifications. I checked and it was my friend texting me. She was cussing me out and telling me how I ruined her wedding. I was really confused and asked what I did. That only made her more angry. She told me it was basic knowledge not to wear a wedding dress to a wedding. I reminded her I had no idea it was a wedding and that I asked her now husband if I should change and he said it was fine. She didn't respond, but I got a text from her husband. He asked why I would tell her he said it was fine. I told him he said it was fine. Then he said I should have changed anyways and it's my fault that the two are fighting over this. I tried texting her that I was sorry and if I had known I wouldn't have done it. I woke up today and saw her and her husband have blocked me on everything. So, am I the asshole for not changing out of the wedding dress when I found out it was actually a wedding? Edit, I'm a guy. I cosplayed the character Emily from The Corpse Bride and had blue paint all over it. I'm also Australian and never heard a costume party meaning fancy. Everyone was dressed up in funny costumes.
Am I the asshole for banning my sister and her boyfriend from my apartment after they did the nasty in my bed? I, 28 male, had to travel overseas for a couple weeks for week-related reasons. My sister's 19 female college is nearby and she offered to feed my cats and water my plants while I was gone. I said sure thanks and told her she was welcome to stay there while I was gone since she lives in a dorm. Anyways, when I got home, my sister was there with her boyfriend. That was fine because I had always thought he was a really cool guy, but one thing I noticed was that my sheets were still in my washer. I didn't think much of it at first, but Am I the asshole for banning my sister and her boyfriend from my apartment after they did the nasty in my bed? My sheets were still in my washer, but I didn't think anything of it. I assumed my sister waited to wash them since she was using my bed while she was there. But she tells me, sorry, my boyfriend and I were using the bed last night. This grossed me out, and I don't think I'm being unreasonable not wanting people to do the nasty in my bed. My sister told me to relax and said I was being a prude American because her boyfriend is from Ireland. She said that us Americans stigmatize sex and that she washed the sheets so it's fine. I said it's not and told her to get out and she's not welcome here anymore. Mom says I'm overreacting.
The new Swiffer Power Mop. Love it or your money back.
Am I the asshole for telling my sister I won't be playing dad to her third baby? So my 22 female sister, Iris 38 female, has 2 daughters, 5 and 7. From the time they were born, I've been helping my sister take care of my nieces. And Iris does have a husband, David, but he doesn't do much in raising his daughters. I think it's important to note that he has a regular 9-to-5 job at a bank, and Iris is a doctor and works double the time that he does. I've had to cancel so many plans, trips, and everything to take care of my nieces when my sister was busy, but David was available. I never had the guts to say something when I was younger, but now she's pregnant with her third baby, and I have some thoughts. Am I the asshole for telling my sister I won't be playing daddy to her third baby? Now my sister is pregnant with her third child, and while I'm excited for her, I'm dreading it. The 2 girls are at an age now where it's gotten a bit easier for me to look after them both alone. I can't imagine having 3. Or taking care of them, I mean. So I told my sister that she's gonna have to tell David to step it up now that I have a job and not so much free time. She asked what's the point of that comment, and I said I've been doing David's share parenting for 7 years. So she needs to tell him to do more because I won't be playing dad again. She got mad at me and said she trusts me to take care of her daughters because women are better at it than men. What do you think? Am I the asshole for blowing up at my mom when she said the reason I turned out so good is because she sent me to rehab for marijuana at 13? I, 20 male, will admit I was a shitty tween. I got in a lot of fights with my parents, my grades were bad, and I was a prick. When I was 13, some friends and I shared some green that one of them had got from their sister. It had just been made legal in our state at the time, but when my parents found out, they went nuts. I get that it isn't for 13-year-olds, but they took it way too far. I spent the next 3 months in an expensive rehab facility for troubled teens. I was by far the youngest and smallest, and most of them were 16 to 18. And not in there for the same reason. Am I the asshole for blowing up at my mom when she said the reason I turned out good is because she sent me to rehab for marijuana at 13? Most were there because they did harder stuff and also had mental issues on top of that. My roommate was a 17-year-old who was detoxing and unmedicated bipolar. A few nights he'd just stare at me and not sleep. We were in our rooms 18 hours a day and everything else was meals. Or arts and crafts. It was bad, but it worked. I was too terrified to have friends, much less anything else. I wanted to go no contact with my family at 18, but my therapist encouraged me to repair our relationship. But at Easter, my mom said she was thankful she sent me to get help, otherwise I would have been a junkie. Am I the asshole for yelling at a kid for crawling under my table at a restaurant? My friend Jack and I, after a long, stressful week, like to go to this local pizza place. It's not fine dining by any stretch of imagination, but there are booths and tables of people sitting down. I see a large table near us of like 10 people, a few couples, a bunch of small kids between 4 and 8, and the kids are running around the restaurant. They were being loud and the adults were drinking wine and eating their pizza. I ignore the commotion for like 20 minutes when suddenly I feel a hand on my leg and one of the little kids is crawling under Jack and my table. I wasn't thinking and I automatically snapped at the kid. Am I the asshole for yelling at a kid for crawling under my table at a restaurant? So the kids are running around the restaurant being loud while the adults are drinking wine and eating their pizza. I ignore the commotion for 20 minutes when suddenly I feel a hand on my leg and one of the little kids is crawling under our table. I wasn't thinking and I snapped at the kid and said, "Get away from our table." The kid ran away and bursted into tears. One of the parents at the other table came over and started tearing into me. They said I was cranky and mean and how dare I yell at their kid who was just playing. Meanwhile, her and the other middle-aged 40-something parents are letting their kids run amok and be loud and obnoxious. So I called her entitled and she called me an asshole.
Am I the asshole for expecting equal treatment for my kids? My mother-in-law lives less than 10 minutes down the road from me. At first, I was so happy. She and my eldest son have a great bond. She would have him over to spend the night once every few months. I have twin newborns at home, and once they got older, she would take one kid at a time to do activities about once a month or so. I thought she was doing what she could to help me, and I was grateful. Then my sister-in-law had a baby, and now my kids only exist on holidays. All of a sudden, my mother-in-law is over at my sister-in-law's house cleaning, gardening, babysitting, if her daughter wants to do literally anything. She's cooking for them, bringing them treats, and inviting them over to have pizza and movie nights. My sister-in-law works. I'm a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling mom, and I run a small business. I watch my nephew and niece when she was born from my sister-in-law during the day shift, overlapping with my brother and sister-in-law. Until I asked to get paid, my mother-in-law started to get Thursdays off at work, so she invited my sister-in-law over from the moment she wakes up to spend her whole day over there as free babysitting. She gets to nap, she gets to eat lunch and dinner there, and gets lunch packed for her night shift job. They call it Grandma Day. After 4 years now, my 4 kids are wondering why only their cousins get Grandma Day. My husband and I talked, and it really bothers him that his mom treats his sister like a princess, but treats him like he only exists if he can do something for her. We agreed to give her one last chance and to spread it all out for her to see our side. We've tried before, and she always changes the conversation. We tell her about the kids asking about having a Grandma Day. She looks taken back. She says she has no more time to give. I'm not asking for any additional days, but that my kids love her and we could go every other week and take turns. She shuts me down right away. She said she's probably not going to do Grandma Day anyways, and she's getting too busy. This was Easter. Not one Grandma Day has been missed except for vacation. She was disgusted I asked, but I don't think it's fair to my kids. I'm not asking for even half of what she's freely offering to my sister-in-law. I feel like she's punishing me and my kids for being a stay-at-home mom. My choice, my consequence. But my sister-in-law works. Shouldn't that be her choice, her consequence? Now they're all treating us like we're the assholes for asking. So, am I the asshole? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Am I wrong for refusing to help my daughter with her car payment because she is a stripper? I, 42 male, have a 22-year-old daughter. She's in college and lives on campus. I agreed to help her make her car payments since she was in school. I was recently informed by a young man I work with that my daughter strips at a club about 40 minutes away. I confronted her on this, and she said she didn't plan to do it after she graduated and just needed some money. I told her then to work at McDonald's, not use her body. But I get your point, I really do as a dad. But the amount of money you make at McDonald's versus the amount of money you make as a stripper is drastic. If school didn't cost an arm and a leg to survive, I'd be like, yeah, work at McDonald's. But life is expensive right now. It doesn't cost as much as it did when you were in school, which was like, what, $1,000 a semester? Shit is expensive. School is like $5-6 grand a semester minimum. And that's not including living expenses. We got into an argument and I asked her to quit stripping and get a decent job then. She refused and said stripping was easy money, so basically I said there was no need for me to pay her car payment anymore since she is making money so easily. She got upset and said that wasn't fair and that she doesn't make enough for that. I told her to figure it out. She told my wife about what happened and my wife was upset by her job choice but says it's unfair for me to stop supporting her so suddenly over an argument. I think it's perfectly fair, it's my money and my decision when to cut it off. Ouch. Can we talk about the guy who snitched on him? Like, wait, that's so weird. If I ever saw a coworker's daughter, sister, mother, whatever at a strip club, I ain't telling him. That's none of my business. I think, honestly, that guy is the asshole out of everyone. And people say, no, I would want to know. That's not, this girl's a grown-ass girl. Am I wrong for letting my sister walk me down the aisle despite my fiance and his family's objections? I, 23 female, was raised by my older half-sister, 32 female. I never met my dad and our mom OD'd when I was 10 and my sister was 19. My sister's dad was still in her life and was willing to support her, but not me. My sister chose to be my guardian and her father's family went low contact with her as a result. In order to raise me, she gave up a lot. Her relationship with her family, college, her 20s, and so much more. A few months ago, I got engaged and I told my sister that in addition to being my maid of honor, I also wanted her to be the one to walk me down the aisle. All my life, she's had to fulfill so many roles for me, big sister, mother, father, friend, that it only felt right that those multiple roles be honored on one of the biggest days of my life. My sister was ecstatic and so was I, but when I brought it up with my fiance, he objected. My future in-laws are very traditional, and my fiance had always expected that his wedding would be a very traditional white wedding. He said that it was great that my sister was my maid of honor, but that her having two roles wasn't, and that it wasn't appropriate for her to walk me down the aisle since that's usually done by a man. Says who? Says who? Apparently his family had assumed that my future father-in-law would be the one to give me away since I don't have any male relatives. I told him that I appreciate his father being willing to fill that role, but that the one who makes me the person I am is my sister, so it's right that she be the one to give me away. It turned into an argument that spread to my in-laws. My mother-in-law called me a few days ago to say although she understands how important my sister is to me, that it's also my fiance's wedding and I shouldn't be putting my sister before him on his day. But how does it affect you? I would understand if it affected him directly, but it's literally just your sister walking down the aisle and giving you to him. I really don't see the problem with this unless I'm missing something. I definitely heard her on that, but this is still important to me. At this point, my sister has even said that she doesn't mind just being the maid of honor and that she doesn't want to turn my happy date into something stressful. So now it's just me holding out and being stubborn, but I really don't want to concede at this point. Am I being the asshole? Okay, so she has an edit to questions people had asked her. Are the in-laws contributing to the wedding? Yes. In fact, they're paying for about 75% of it since I'm still in school and don't have the money to put towards a wedding the scale that fiance wanted. Does your fiance have sisters? No, he has 2 younger brothers. Did he ask your sister for your hand? He did, actually. She also helped him custom design the engagement ring. She showed me their group text, and at one point they spent 3 weeks trying to decide between 5 different diamonds. Am I wrong for not letting my daughter spend her college fund on a house or a wedding? Backstory. I, 43 female, have 4 kids and I'm currently pregnant. My husband and I, 50 male, started adding to college funds every month for each of our kids pretty much as soon as we found out we were pregnant. I won't say the exact amount, but my husband has an excellent job, so it's more than most. We never told our kids because it just didn't feel necessary. My daughter Elle, 22 female, got pregnant when she was 16 and ended up dropping out of school. I was very disappointed, but I understood. However, I was under the impression she would return later, but she has no plans to. The dad stuck around, and now they have 1 more kid on the way. They are engaged but don't plan to marry until they can afford it. They were doing okay financially for a while, but due to the market right now, they've been struggling because Elle can't get a job since she doesn't have a diploma, so we've been loaning them money. My daughter Katie, 17 female, is a senior and just got accepted into college. We've been setting everything up, and obviously she knows about the funds now. Katie and Elle were talking, and she was telling Elle about the school, and Elle asked how she was planning on paying for it. Katie responded, "My college fund." I was in the room while they were talking, and this made me panic. We had just planned on splitting it between the remaining 4 since we knew they were going to college. Elle asked me if they all had one, and I wasn't going to lie, so I said yes. She got really excited and went to call her fiancé and tell him the good news. I was confused and told her she couldn't have the money. She asked why, and I said it's for school. She got upset and left my house. The next day, I got a call from Elle, and she was crying and begging me to let her have the funds so she could finally afford a down payment and maybe even a wedding. I told her she could have the money if she went back to school, and whatever money was left over she could use for whatever she wanted. She got super mad and started yelling at me and saying it's her money. I told her that it was my money and those were my conditions, and she hung up. Now we are being harassed by her fiance's family. They aren't as fortunate as us, calling us assholes and a lot of other names, saying it's all gonna go to waste if she doesn't use him. We're setting her up for failure, etc. Now I'm wondering if I'm the asshole because my dad said we should give her the money as we saved it for her after all. So, am I? I know I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this, but I would say not the asshole because I agree with the mom. I really do. Sorry, not sorry.
Am I the asshole for canceling my niece's college fund upon discovering what she's been doing to me and my wife for months? My wife and I have struggled with infertility for years. We're trying more options, but we're losing hope. I have a 16-year-old niece that is like a daughter and a friend to me. Considering I'm doing well financially, I've decided to take care of her education and start a college fund so she can attend a college of her choice. My brother and his wife, my niece's stepmom, are of course aware of that and they are very appreciative. They always talk about what a generous, loving uncle I am, unlike my younger brother. I've been dealing with a series of unusual, unexplainable events, like receiving text messages at work from someone pretending to be my wife, informing me of some big news, like her being pregnant, or finding mysterious envelopes in my car when I'm at my parents' house, and the envelopes contained letters from someone also pretending to be my wife, again telling me she was pregnant. My wife and I had no idea who's been playing us like this. We knew it was someone close to us and had many that made our list of suspects, including my brother-in-law. Last week I was visiting my brother's house and my car was parked in their driveway. I was sitting with my brother and sister-in-law, but my niece left for a few minutes then returned. I finished my coffee, said goodbye, and left. While I was approaching my car, I noticed a sign on my windshield. I looked at it, read the sign, and it said I'm pregnant written largely. I was confused because I knew no one from this neighborhood and suspected someone who knew me did it. I took the sign and went back to my brother's to help me figure this out. Said someone must have left it on the wrong car, but I explained it happened before. He just shrugged, but my sister-in-law pointed at the sign and said that the writing style looked similar to my niece's. My brother told her to stop, but I called my niece to come downstairs and asked her. At first she denied it, but then got nervous and admitted to all of it. I blew up telling her that she was out of line to think mocking my wife and mine suffering and playing us for months was funny. I said I was mad, disappointed, and won't ever be looking at her the same. I informed her, my brother, and sister-in-law I officially was canceling the college fund I started for her due to her cruelty and disrespect for us. She broke down saying she meant no harm or disrespect and was just messing with us. My brother said I can't actually make this decision based on a small mistake my niece made. He said this is her future and that I was giving up on my decision will have a lasting impact. I cut the conversation and left. So, am I the asshole for canceling my niece's college fund upon discovering what she's been doing to my wife and I for months? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Am I the asshole for lying to my wife as a joke about what AWD means? My 27 male wife, 27 female is very into feminism, and I often joke about it and she doesn't seem to mind. Like, I believe in equality and all and don't criticize her view or anything. Well, my wife was having car troubles with the engine of her old car and her mechanic convinced her they were going to get worse and advised her to get another car. I thought it could do more years, but she still decided to sell it without even getting a second opinion. Her mechanic is actually a woman and she trusts her for that reason and thinks she's a great mechanic. So my wife sold her old car and bought a used one that was much newer from a lady. Am I the asshole for lying to my wife as a joke about what AWD means? She bought it because she fell in love with the color and thought it looked too cute. It's a fine car and I have no issues with it, but it just seemed like an odd reason to get a car to me. The car has an AWD badge on it, and as we were driving back after she bought it, she asked me why. I joked and said it was something they put on and is a club association of women drivers where they get together and talk about cars and car troubles and help each other. I thought she would realize it was a joke, but she took me seriously, so I didn't say anything and tried not to laugh. When she got home, she Googled it and realized I was joking, but got really upset and called me an asshole. Am I the asshole for shaving my stepdaughter's legs? I'm female 29, married to my husband male 35, who has a child female 12 from his previous relationship. My husband and I are currently visiting his daughter in her hometown, and one of the things we did is go to Target. Before going, I asked my stepdaughter's mom what she's allergic to or sensitive to and what she's not allowed to have. My stepdaughter tends to copy what I'm purchasing for myself, so I just wanted to be sure. Her mom said that she's not allowed to have any makeup and that otherwise she's not sensitive or allergic to anything. Fast forward to Target, my stepdaughter really liked a pair of shorts but refused to get them because her legs were hairy. Am I the asshole for shaving my stepdaughter's legs? Her legs are really hairy and her mom doesn't allow her to shave. She's a brunette with really thick hair and my husband and I were really surprised to hear this. I personally never had any shaving leg restrictions growing up, so we asked around. My sister-in-law, my stepmom, some friends, and everyone said they were allowed to shave their legs. Or at least their mom would help them do it. We had one more activity planned, going to the water park, and my stepdaughter refused that because she was ashamed to wear a swimsuit. But she loves water parks, so I offered to shave her legs and she agreed, and of course so did her dad. My stepdaughter was so happy, but her mom not so much, and she emailed us calling us assholes.
Am I wrong for not attending the engagement dinner my future in-laws threw for me after my fiance hid my engagement ring? My fiance, 31 male, proposed to me 28 female days ago. He has this habit of joking around and pulling pranks from time to time. It bothers me sometimes, but I try to have patience. His family wanted to throw us an engagement party at a restaurant. I heard his mom talk about how expensive this place was and how much money they paid for reservations, so this clearly was a huge deal for them. My fiance and I were getting ready, and I noticed my engagement ring wasn't where I left it before I entered the shower. I freaked out and looked for it everywhere. I asked my fiance about it, and he said he didn't see it. I freaked out and was running out of time for the party. He sat there watching me, almost losing my mind trying to find it, to the point where I started crying because without the ring, I couldn't show up to the party. I kept thinking about what his family would say and how they think I was irresponsible to lose a ring that is somewhat expensive. I gave up looking.
When was
and
the
sat
last
down and
time
just cried
you
in
did that?
frustration. Next thing I knew, my fiance was standing in front of me laughing with his hand extended to me with a ring in it. I asked where he found it and he could barely speak and say that he hid it from me last minute before the party as a prank. I was in shock, but I just sort of blew up on him and started yelling, saying that he hid the ring, made me freak out for 2 hours, and almost made me miss the party. He was like, relax, it was a prank, okay? Don't make a big deal out of it and ruin the evening. I told him I wasn't going to the party and that if his family asked, I would tell them it was because he hid my ring. He freaked out and started begging me to let it go and just go with him, but I refused and went into the bathroom, took my medication, and stayed there. He lost it and kept saying that I blew this out of proportion and that I ruined my own party and cost his family a lot of money and disrespected them by not attending. His family found out and they were mad at him, but also me for choosing to not attend and getting over it, but I was in a horrible state emotionally and couldn't handle being in public after what had happened. So, am I the asshole for choosing not to go after he hid the ring? Am I wrong for pretending not to know my fiance after she had a meltdown during boarding the plane and was eventually thrown off? I imagine I'm going to get raked over the coals for this one. So my fiance, maybe not for much longer, and I were on our way back from a vacation recently. It was a great time and everything went off without an issue. That is, until we started boarding the plane. Now I know better. I only bring a small backpack with essentials in case I don't get my checked bags. I can survive out of this backpack and it will always pass baggage check for size and weight. I've done a lot of traveling, so why fight the system? My fiance didn't want to listen to my advice and chose to bring basically a regular full-size bag that barely fits the standards of a carry-on. But generally speaking, the airline worker doesn't want to deal with the trouble and allows us to. But this time, the airline worker was not happy. It was a packed flight, we were boarding last in economy, and it was just a shit show. I got through just fine first with my little backpack, but I could hear the argument from the boarding tunnel thing and it was getting heated. I was about to go back and try to smooth it out, but my fiance rushed past and just boarded the plane. I assumed, not having heard it super clearly, that the attendant had given in and let her on. That was not the case. So we found our seats and settled in. I was pretty tired and I could tell she was upset, so I kind of just tucked into the window and put my hat down and tried to take a nap. But soon after, the airline worker and a cop shows up and they are not fucking around and want her off the plane. She tries to plead and cry, etc., but they are not having it. And maybe in a moment of panic or just plain self-preservation, the cop asks if we're together and I blurt out, "No," shaking my head empathetically. I got kill daggers from her eyes and she shot up and grabbed her bag and followed the cop out. She was also swearing and screaming the whole way out. Now, obviously, this is well after the event I'm posting this, but when she did eventually get home, she caught the next flight out with the bag checked. I was there to pick her up. She obviously thought I was the asshole, and to be honest, almost everyone I know thinks I'm an asshole except my boss and coworkers, who for context were very much relying on me to get back on time, which I gave my word I would for a really important project that was time sensitive. They were all very happy I didn't get thrown off too. So am I the asshole for this self-preservation? Am I wrong for announcing my pregnancy at my sister's wedding? Announcing it or just telling people like, hey, by the way, I'm pregnant? There's a big difference. I'm 32 and my sister is 28, and we've always been incredibly close. Point in case, she was the first person I told that I was pregnant, besides my husband, of course. I told her essentially a week after I got a positive pregnancy test, which was about 3 months before her wedding. I told her I was going to tell our parents and my husband's parents around the 10-week mark, but she told me that I should hold off until her wedding in September. I never understand people who think pregnancy announcements overshadow your wedding. That is not the case. Like, the world does not revolve around you. Like, ugh. I'd be like 4 months along at that point, so I wouldn't be showing really, and she thought it would be so special for her to be able to make an announcement about a special guest at her wedding, and it'd be her first niece or nephew, and my parents' first grandbaby. Oh, so she's the one who decided to, like, actually announce it at your wedding. That's cute. I like that. I agreed because it seemed like it meant a lot to her, and again, we were super close and I was happy to do that for her. I actually really like that idea. I'm really close with my sister, so like, I can see this maybe potentially happening, but never mind, because she's already married and has like 3 kids, so no. Turns out, the first trimester was awful with morning sickness and exhaustion. I would have preferred to be able to talk about it with my mom, but I was willing to grin and bear it for my sister's wedding. Well, the wedding came along, and about halfway through the night, I asked her when the announcement was happening. She told me that she changed her mind and that her wedding didn't seem like a good time or place to announce my pregnancy. I was obviously super upset since I went through a really awful first trimester with only my sister and husband to lean on. I decided I wasn't going to put the announcement on hold any longer just for her. So my husband and I pulled my parents aside and quietly told them to keep it private for the evening. They were thrilled, lots of hugs, a few tears, but a very touching and private moment. Literally, no one else found out until I announced it on Facebook a week later. My sister found out about it the same time as my Facebook post when my dad mentioned how we told him about it. And she texted me and called me a bitch who made her wedding about myself. And she hasn't spoken to me since. I've messaged her and apologized probably a dozen times since then, but she refuses to talk to me and now refuses to come see her little nephew who
So I'm fully dressed. I have this top and I have these cute leggings from Target. So that's what I'm wearing, but not for long. And I'm going to be doing my hair. So when I come back, my hair might be done. Yeah. So I accidentally fell asleep and took a nap because I was kind of bored. So now I really need to do my hair. I'll probably be done by like, I don't know, 10. But now I'm going to screen record and things like that. So yeah.
Un sándwich de queso.
Thank you. Thank you. Hold on a second now. You gotta have something for Mackenzie. What do you got up your sleeve? So hold it in your lap.
This is it.
Hold it in your lap.
Open it up.
Open it up. What did you get?
Like Ohio, down.
Am I the asshole for stealing money from my broke-ass boyfriend? Disclaimer is not my story time, listed on me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been together for 6 months. When we first met, he got fired from his job, so I decided to start paying for a few things. For example, every time we go to dinner, or sometimes when we go on dates. But it's gotten to the point where I'm literally paying for everything. And now, he doesn't even say thank you for it. He just expects it. Every time I tell him to look for a new job, he starts making up excuses. It's like he got comfortable having me pay for everything. One day I went to his wallet and I took out a 20. And then I did it the following week. I used that money to pay for his stuff. Part 2 is up. Am I the asshole for stealing money from my broke-ass boyfriend? Disclaimer is not my story time, listed on me on Instagram. By the first month, I had stolen $100 from his wallet and he didn't even notice. But because I was paying for everything in the relationship, I was using that money to pay for his half of everything. He just didn't know it. My job was hiring, and when I told him to apply, he said no. He said he wasn't in a rush to get a new job. Meanwhile, I'm paying for everything. The worst part is he asked me if he could move in with me because he can't afford his apartment anymore. His parents are not wanting to pay for it. I love him, but I don't know if I should say yes. By the way, I'm still stealing money from his wallet. Should I stop or should I keep going? Or should I break up with him? Story time about how I found out I was born from incest. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, listed on me on Instagram. Growing up, I always wondered why we didn't have a family. I mean, I had both my parents, but we never visited my grandparents, cousins, parents until I turned 15. That's when I started getting curious and I started asking questions. Finally, I asked my parents about my grandparents. I remember meeting them when I was a kid. That's when my dad got really upset. He told me to stop asking questions because we didn't need family. I immediately went onto Facebook. It wasn't hard to find my aunt, my mom's sister. I messaged her and she told me something disturbing. She said my mom and dad were related. They were half brother and sister. Part 2 is up. Story time about how I found out I was born out of incest. Disclaimer is not my story time, listed on me on Instagram. When my aunt told me the disturbing truth. My mom and dad were half brother and sister. According to my aunt, when they were in high school, they always spent time together. Everyone just thought they were best friends. But apparently my aunt walked in on them making out one day. When she told her parents and my grandparents, they obviously freaked out and tried to separate them. That's when they tried to send my dad to a military school. 1 week before they sent him, my mom and dad decided to run away together. They finally ran away and never spoke to their family again until I was born. My grandmother begged them to get rid of me. My parents kept me. Part 3 is up. Story time about how I found out I was born out of incest. Disclaimer is not my story time, it's on Instagram. After I was born, my grandmother begged my mom to give me up for adoption. My parents were both 18 when they had me. Not only were they jobless, they were also half brother and sister. Since my parents had run away from home, my grandparents didn't want to help them financially. Luckily, my parents started their own business and they are successful today. Finding out that my parents are half brother and sister, I understand our family history and why we were never close to our family. Finally confronted my parents and they denied everything. I decided I'd do the same thing they did. I ran away for 3 nights, hid in my bestie's basement. Finally, my parents came over and told me the entire truth. My parents do love me, but they keep me away from my family. What should I do? Should I forgive them?
Am I in the wrong for not making child-inclusive plans that someone in my friend group can attend? I have a group of 6 friends and their significant others from high school. All of us are in our mid-20s. The only person in our friend group is Jessica, who has 2 young children and is a single mom. I'm the only person in my friend group that can host, as my husband and I own a decent-sized house and I don't have anything stopping us from hosting, I guess. One doesn't want to host, 2 live with their parents and can't, another has roommates that won't let them, etc. We all live in a rural area, so there isn't really anywhere to go for more than a quick dinner, so someone hosting is the only way that we can all hang out really. When I host, it's always later in the day, around 7 p.m.-ish. That's when most of us are off work. I also have a no children rule for my house, since my dog is afraid of children and I honestly don't like kids anyways. My nephew yanked my dog's tail several times, so now my dog growls at kids. I had a gathering last weekend, a dinner time barbecue. Everyone was invited, same age as norm. Jessica asked if she could bring her kids because she can't afford a babysitter since both of their dads aren't involved at all. I said no, because of my dogs and also because I don't want a baby and toddler at my house. The last time she brought them, she kept trying to push them off on other people who didn't want to hold them so she could relax. Also, her toddler puked on my $5K white couch, which I had to replace. No, she didn't pay for it. Jessica blew up on me in the group chat and said that I always exclude her. I told her that I'm not excluding her, I'm excluding kids. All kids. She's welcome to come if she can find someone to watch her kids. I also told her that she's welcome to host. She kind of went on about how all that's impossible and now she isn't talking to anyone. Our friend group is split. Half of them think it's my house's rules. One said that maybe if she screwed better guys she'd be able to have a babysitter. And two think that I should just let her kids come. To be honest, if it was someone else, I would have maybe caved. But I don't like Jessica that much, especially since she didn't pay for my replacement couch. So, am I in the wrong here? Am I in the wrong for asking my wife to stop dancing for me until she gets better? I'm 33 male and my wife 26 female has recently gone into sensual type of dance classes. Think burlesque or twerking to R&B music type stuff. She's an artistic type and loves music, movies, etc. But she's always wanted to try dancing for fun. I supported her new interest and I was happy to see her having fun. After about 2 to 3 months of taking these classes pretty consistently, she sat me down one night for a surprise. She dimmed the lights, came back in a sexy outfit and danced to a song. I was super excited to watch her, as she's been pretty shy about seeing her dance before, but I have to say that it was not good. If I'm being honest, it was really bad. To give an example, think of the show King of Queens, when Carrie takes up pole dancing and dances for Doug. I know it's played up for TV, but it was almost at that level. She tripped a few times and just overall didn't look comfortable or sexy, but I talked about the nerve and said it was A week later, she did another show for me and it was just as bad. I didn't want to get into the habit of her doing these shows for me and secretly not liking it. So the next night when we were cuddling before bed, she asked if I wanted another show sometime. And I told her as kindly as possible that I don't say this to embarrass her, but that the dances haven't been doing it for me. I asked her if she felt nervous or shy, and she said a little bit, but the nerves went away once she started dancing. Overall, she seemed to take it in good sport. But then the next morning, she was noticeably distant and eventually admitted that she's upset and hurt that I told her to stop and that I should have just kept watching them even if I didn't like it so she could get better over time. Obviously, it wasn't my intention to hurt her, but I felt like I was placed in a tough spot here. So, am I in the wrong? Am I in the wrong for canceling a vacation because my wife can't pay her share after helping her adult son and ex-husband? My wife, 44, makes quite a bit less than me, 45 male, so our joint expenses are split 70-30. To clarify, she contributes 30% of her pay to our joint expenses, bills, utilities, emergency funds, retirement. 70% of her pay she keeps for personal expenses to spend or save how she wishes. Dates, vacations, and fun things we choose to do together are budgeted and planned based on what we can afford from our personal funds. Pool that money together, then pay together. For the most part, things like vacations and where we bought a house are decided based on what she can afford. But there have been several times I've paid in full for vacations to places I really enjoy and want to share the experience with her. She has a 23-year-old son from her previous marriage. When she and I got together, I told her that I wouldn't mind paying for extra things here and there until her son was 18 and working or in school so she could take care of him. For the majority of our relationship, he's with his father. He decided against college or trade school and hasn't expressed any interest in starting to figure out a plan for the immediate future, let alone his life. He floats from job to job and his father is pretty much the same since the kid graduated. Therein lies the problem. Every few months, they'll call her for a few $100s here and there. Sometimes it's her son calling for help, sometimes it's her ex-husband. This has caused her to be short on funds for our plans, or things she volunteered to cover on more than one occasion. Her reasoning when her ex is asking is that since her son still lives with him, she has to help him. I get that to a point. We were supposed to go on a vacation later this month. Nothing major or fancy, just some time away. We had agreed to split the costs, and all that was left to pay were the hotels, rental car, and some reservations. Her ex-husband called needing help getting his car out of impound and getting caught up on rent. Their son hasn't been able to get to work without the car because he doesn't want to ride a bike or take a bus. Almost $5,000 later, they're set up, but my wife told me that she can't pay for her portion of our vacation, so I told her that I was canceling it. She called me a heartless ass, that she's just taking care of her son and we've been arguing over it, but my stance is this. They're both able-bodied adults that keep making a series of life decisions that keep them at a standstill, like quitting jobs over little things, smoking, going out, and her always digging them out of their hole is starting to impact our lives more and more. And I didn't sign up for that. Am I in the wrong for canceling our vacation instead of just footing the entire cost myself?
Am I the asshole for buying myself expensive clothes when my family struggles to make ends meet? I, 18 female, have recently started my first full-time job. I still live at home and pay $300 fortnightly for rent. I also pay for all my other necessities, my phone bill, and hygiene products. My family has been very poor my whole life as my mom, 44 female, is a single mom studying full-time and looking after 5 children. I have a slight shopping addiction, as a lot of girls my age do, and at least once a week some sort of package or food order is showing up at our doorstep. Today, a new pair of jeans around $150 showed up. Am I the asshole for buying myself expensive clothes when my family struggles to make ends meet? Today, a new pair of jeans around $150 arrived. I was in desperate need for a new pair as I've outgrown my old ones. Well, my mom blew up at me and called me selfish, insensitive, and that she's ashamed I'm her daughter. She told me I should think about how it makes her feel when I buy an excessive amount of clothes when she can barely afford to heat the house. So, am I wrong for not offering to pay more rent and for also spending money, my hard-earned money, on things I want? Also, I'm not trying to flaunt my money, I'm just not home when the packages come. Am I the asshole for making my teens 16 male and 14 female share a bedroom? My husband unexpectedly passed away a few months ago and I became a single mother to 3 kids. Their ages are 16 male, 14 female, and 2 female. Well, due to the significant decrease of income, I was no longer able to continue renting where we were. All I can afford is a 1-bedroom apartment, and currently I'm sleeping in the living room with my youngest 2 female. I gave the bedroom to my 16 male and my 14 female, and I asked them to share in the meanwhile. I tried adding a privacy screen in the middle so they feel they have their own space, but they're upset. Am I the asshole for making my teens 16 male and 14 female share a bedroom? Each of my kids used to have their own room, so honestly this is a massive change for them. I've been looking for a better paying job for months and so far had no luck, and I can't get a second job because I can't afford daycare. Neither of my kids 16 male and 14 female are willing to help and say my youngest is not their responsibility. But then they have the nerve to complain about the room situation? What? I know it's not ideal, but I don't know what else I can do. I've literally been not eating anything for 2 days a week and just telling the kids I'm fasting. But the truth is I can't afford it and I've been going to the food bank. Am I the asshole for not wanting to change my first dance song because of my stepsister's association with it? My stepsister is not at all happy because we chose our song and it's the same one she and her ex-husband also had at their wedding. She said she had a lot of memories with the particular song and even asked if I could change it, but I said I get it, but this is what we want. I don't want to change it. And she said she understood, but she's been acting really weird around me. Now you guys, this is what was not mentioned until later.
Because of it. When I turned 16, my parents let me get surgery to look more like my mom. I got my nose done and lip filler. And this helped me go viral on Instagram. People praised me for my beauty and for looking like my mom. I was able to reach 100,000 followers on my own. Of it. When I turned 16, my parents let me get surgery to look more like my mom. I got my nose done and lip filler. And this helped me go viral on Instagram. People praised me for my beauty and for looking like my mom. I was able to reach 100,000 followers on my own. And for my 18th birthday, my parents bought me another 100,000 followers. Most of my followers were fake. That's when I started making $10,000 a post. So I got more surgery. Part 2 is up. Story time about how my social media following is completely fake and I've gotten lots of surgeries. After my parents bought me 100K followers, brands were paying me left and right. I made $100,000 in 2 months. With the money I was making, I decided to get more surgery. I got a brow lift, cheek filler, and liposuction. By the way, this was 8 to 7 years ago. At that time, everyone was talking about those detox teas. A brand approached me and they were paying me 10K per post. But then my followers all started getting angry. People started noticing that I had lipo belly. If you don't know what that is, please Google it. I started losing followers, so I had to buy more. I had to give them money back. Part 3 is story time about how my social media is completely fake and I got lots of surgeries. Started to get canceled because of the products that I was promoting on my Instagram. I was getting paid more than $10,000 a post. I mean, what do you expect? And I got filler in my hips and my butt. At the time, the Kardashians were super popular for that. Well, fast forward 8 years later, I had to get my lips, my butt, my hips dissolved. In total, I spent over $150,000 on surgeries. I'm still making lots of money on social media though. People are always trying to cancel me because they're jealous. I got invited to be on a reality TV show, but I feel like people will start noticing all my surgeries then. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend that he can't have girlfriends? I'm 22 and my boyfriend's 27. He's a finance bro. He comes from a rich, white, privileged family and always gets exactly what he wants, which included me. Grew up in a low-income household, and my parents are immigrants. Family and I are really tight. Him and his family, on the other end, they barely speak to each other. Met at a party and he asked me out and I said yes. Before that, I had never hung out with anybody who had money, so him taking me out to dinners, his family's yacht, and on trips was an entirely different world for me. I quickly realized that it was always going to be his way. We always go eat where he wants to. We always hang out with whoever he wants to hang out with. Don't get me wrong, he is considerate and sweet and loving. We threw a party for his best friend's birthday on his yacht, and an old friend of his showed up to the party. This girl was just like him, rich, white, and got everything she wanted. But her and I actually did make friends that day. But then she started wanting to hang out with my boyfriend by themselves. He told me he was going to have breakfast with her, and I asked him why he wouldn't take me. That's when he said that they just wanted to catch up. Told him it made me uncomfortable, but he went to breakfast anyway. Said we should have friends of the opposite sex. Should I break up with him?
Am I the asshole for not letting my girlfriend have access to my finances? My girlfriend and I have been together for 3 years and have a 1.5-year-old. I'm the only one with a job right now, and it's not a high-paying one either. I did get a credit card last year to try and better my credit score, but I accumulated a lot of debt over the winter. I used it for bills and whatever the family needed. It's the last thing I feel I have any control of currently, and I just want to be able to...
Okay, so now I'm going to do my hair because it is looking a hot mess. And I also have an interview today, so I do not need this. So, I'm coming. So I finished my hair. I did some 2 buns. And, okay. So, I know you guys see outside, but it looks so nice from my view. Yeah. Looks so pretty. So, don't know what I'm going to do. Ow, that hurt. So in the comment section, you guys can ask me any questions and I'll answer them. So yeah.
She didn't know. Because I never talked about it with her. I suppose I never wanted to think that I'm vulnerable, or that I was. You can imagine, after these many years, my thoughts on the matter are still mixed. Anyway, she was horrified to learn this and started crying. She'll have the tattoo removed. After the original post, I came to the conclusion that her new skin decoration is something that I'll have to deal with. But at the end of the day, she is the one I want, and a mild annoyance will not define our relationship. I told her this, but she said that she's going to get it removed anyway. I think she's horrified by the revelation. We also decided on couples counseling to see that if it's something that'll work for us. If either of us will be uncomfortable, we won't continue. We also decided not to be a-holes to one another in petty matters. We'll put a lot of work into ourselves individually and as a couple. Turns out, we have a problem with communication, but the prospects are still positive. My fears were that she had the tattoo done as a power play, but there was no malice. I want a relationship of equals, where a decision can be made as a couple. We'll see where this is going, but the last 2 days have been amazing. Today I messed up by getting my girlfriend high. I, 24 male, and my girlfriend, 23 female, were hanging out at home as we usually do during the week. Both go to work, have jobs, come home, and spend time together. I'm an avid 420 consumer. Her, not so much. But it's Monday night, not much going on, and she decides she wants to smoke with me. I have different types of wax that I like, and one is clear distillate, which is around 96% THC. So, I lay both containers on the table, get a movie going, and go get some snacks. Her, trying to be sexy, gets naked and takes a Rick Ross-sized dab of the distillate. Terrible idea. I tell her she has about 4 minutes before she's mobilized, and sure enough, 2 minutes later, she's in the bathroom puking. I bring her water and do all the necessary things, but she asks me to leave the bathroom as to not see her puking her guts out. So, I go back to the living room and watch TV, checking in once in a while. This whole time I never noticed her phone sitting on the couch until she started getting numerous texts and Snapchat notifications. My curiosity gets the best of me, and I look and she has about 3 male coworkers on Snapchat that are all texting her after hours. Odd, sure, but I blow it off as work friends, until I looked at her memories. One particular coworker, we'll call him Greg, has a bunch of selfies in her memories, some with her, some without. So I open their messages, and oh my God. Staring back at me is an exchange of nude photos and even videos that he had recorded of them and sent to her for keeping. You can imagine the context of such videos. I'm heartbroken, sure, but I've been cheated on and I knew I could get through it. What horrifies me is the size of this guy's D. I've never seen anything so massive. It looked like a half-used roll of paper towels. One of the videos consisted of her giving the dude head, and she could barely get the tip in her mouth. Seriously, this dude isn't hung like a horse. Horses are hung like him. I'm so ashamed and embarrassed that this has been going on, and I've actually come into her work and had conversations with these people who are fucking my girlfriend.
Lost my virginity before marriage and my parents want me to prove my virginity to them. What should I do? Come from an extremely religious family. In my culture, women should be virgins before they get married. So here's how I lost my virginity. To my cousin. My parents are super strict. I grew up hiding everything from my parents. When I was 14, this new girl came to my school and she basically corrupted me. I had never in my life before even kissed a boy or even looked at one. But she would take me to parties and this is where I started meeting a lot of boys. A boy asked me to be his girlfriend and I said yes. This is where I had my first kiss. The next summer, my parents took me to visit my uncles. This is where I saw my cousin. We were both exactly the same age, and as soon as we saw each other, we were pretty much attracted to each other. I know, it's really disgusting and messed up. I was 15 at the time. This meant I didn't know anything about anything. My cousin would flirt with me all the time while we were visiting, and it kind of became a game for us. Before I knew it, he got me alone in a room and decided to kiss me. And after this, we just started making out all the time when we were alone. Then he started touching me. Now, no, I did not give him permission, but we were both 15, and it was just understood that we wanted it. And then we did the dirty. Like all night. Part 2 is up. Lost my virginity before marriage and my parents want me to prove that I'm a virgin. And I lost my virginity to my cousin. So the first time I did it with my cousin, we did it all night. This was the first time I had ever done anything like that. At the time, I didn't think that I would ever have to then prove to my parents that I was a virgin years later. So after I lost my virginity with my cousin, everything went downhill. I started doing it with other boys. And I even started dating a boy behind my parents' back. My parents, like I said, are super strict. When I was 17, my dad decided to tell me that he had already offered my hand in marriage to somebody. So that meant I was promised to somebody I had never even met. The boy that I was promised to lived in a different country. So 4 months later, he came with his parents. And when I met him, I was in love. He was extremely good looking, super smart, and he liked me right away. We were both really compatible in every single way. But then I remembered that I wasn't a virgin. The first night we met them, my parents brought up the fact that I was a virgin. My fiance looked at me with the biggest smile on his face. Not me sitting there knowing that I had already done it with 7 guys. From here on, I had to pretend like I was the perfect little virgin. So I basically cut off all the guys I was doing it with. Part 3 is up. Lost my virginity before marriage and now I have to prove that I'm a virgin to my parents. So after I lost my virginity to my cousin, I was screwed. My father promised my hand in marriage to a man who thought I was a virgin, and his parents celebrated the fact that I was a virgin. Anytime they came to dinner, we would always somehow end up talking about how I was a virgin. It was like the hot topic with my father and his dad. This is when the wheel started turning. I started thinking of ways to tell my family that I was no longer a virgin. And the only thing that I could come up with was telling them that I was R-worded. But that's obviously a horrible idea because then I would have to accuse somebody and it would just be bad. So I decided to just simply confess. I sat my parents down and I told them that I was no longer a virgin. But when they asked me with who, I could not tell them it was my cousin. Instead, I told them it was some random boy from school. That's when my father told me that I had to prove myself a virgin to get married. So I decided to go to a gynecologist and pay him to say that I was still intact. All he did was sign some piece of paper that said I was basically a virgin. So I gave it to my parents and they were happy with that. So guess what I did on my wedding night to pretend like I was a virgin? I saved some period blood. Part 4 is up.
Am I wrong for prioritizing my daughter's school performance over her emotional well-being after her mother's death? When she approached me, I couldn't help but think about how it would impact her grades and future prospects. I was just concerned that missing school would lead to a drop in her academic performance and potentially hinder her chances of getting into a good college. So instead of allowing her to take time off to grieve, I suggested she continue attending school. And I told her that I believed that maintaining a routine and focusing on her education would provide stability and keep her on track. Well, apparently my daughter was devastated by my decision. She accused me of not caring about her feelings and prioritizing her school performance over her well-being. She believes that I'm being callous and unfeeling, dismissing her need for time to heal. So am I wrong for putting my daughter's school performance ahead of her emotional well-being? At least that's how she puts it. I genuinely am wondering if I made the right decision, and once again, I'm open to any judgment. Am I wrong for accessing my dad's phone and deleting a picture of myself? My family and friends were abroad at a hotel resort, and I, 18 male, do not like shirtless pictures of myself taken. This holiday, I was pretty much able to do my own thing, and that was mainly sleeping, eating, and enjoying the pool. To that end, my days were only overlapped with my family and friends and the evenings. One night, halfway through the holiday during dinner, I told them I'd come with them to the beach. The beach was a 10-minute walk away, and I specifically said no photos at the beach, and they agreed. And mind you, at this point, it's been a fact for years that I do not like pictures being taken, so it's nothing new. Skip to the next day, we're all walking to the beach and I remind them, please don't take any pictures of me. At the beach, all is well with the world. I decide to put sun cream on, and to do this, I take my top off. Then once I'm done, I go in for a swim. I didn't put my top back on to swim because I didn't want to get it wet, but when I was swimming, my dad took a picture of me without my consent. Am I wrong for accessing my dad's phone and deleting a picture of myself? I put some sunscreen on, and to do this, of course, I took my top off. Then once done, I go for a swim in the sea and didn't put my top back on, of course, because I didn't want it to get wet. So I'm just swimming, having a great time, and my dad decides to take a picture of me without my consent. So I shake my head, put my arms up, and tell him to stop, but he continues and smiles while doing so. I then start to confront him, asking, "Why'd you do that? I specifically asked you not to." Then he goes on the defensive, saying, "You're my son. I can take pictures of you if I want." So I later sneak onto his phone and delete the pictures myself, and he gets even more annoyed. Also, for anyone wondering, if he asked me if he could take a picture, I would have just put the shirt back on and let him. I understand he wanted to take a picture of me to commemorate the time at the beach, and that's cool. But he did the one thing I asked him not to, and I know these photos go on Facebook, and that's my exact fear. I know going on his phone wasn't cool, but he wasn't going to delete it.
What's up, you guys? It's Lexi here. Bubbler and I are giving away $20,000. Yes, you heard that right, so listen up. We're looking for people who are entrepreneurs, who are small business owners, musicians, dancers, whatever it is, anyone who has a dream or a passion project. You all know how I feel about passion projects, and that's why this is so exciting. Here's how you have to enter. All you have to do is create a 30 to 60 second video telling me about your dreams, telling me about your passions, and what you would do with a $20,000 grand prize. Tell me why you love what you do. Tell me why you want to do all of these things. Trust me when I tell you, I know that passion projects and chasing your dreams can be really expensive, and that's why $20,000 can go a really long way. Once you've created that video, you're going to upload it to TikTok or Instagram, you're going to tag @drinkbubbler, and you're going to use the hashtag BoostYourFuture. Then what you'll do is you'll head over to boostyourfuture.com and you'll confirm your entry by October 5th. And what's so exciting is
Story time about how I was accused of sexually harassing my coworker. This is my story time. I did post this yesterday, but it was like 5 minutes long, so
Yo necesito la cuenta. Un
sándwich de pescado.
Un sándwich de queso.
Get more with Super Duolingo. Go ad-free and skip the interruptions to
Back in 2018, I had just gotten married and my best friend was working at a company called S3 in New York City. I was so excited to get this job, you guys. I was so broke at the time. Before that, I had worked as everything. I was an assistant, maid, served at like 20 different restaurants, worked at the strip club, and I did a whole slew of other things. This job paid me $8,000 a month. It was amazing. Like, I thought I was set for life. The job was pretty simple and it was really stress-free. I had to make phone calls and sell a financial app, and I was pretty good at it. Like I said, my best friend got me this job and it was really nice because I got to hang out with her every single day at work. Now, my desk was next to somebody called Justin. Justin was one of the salespeople at the company. I heard from a few people that before I got there, Justin was not the friendliest. He wouldn't make jokes or laugh, but after I got there, his attitude completely changed. To be honest, I had fun with him and he was a great coworker. But of course, that was it. I didn't see him as anything else other than a coworker. He and I would make jokes all the time, talked about music and movies. He would talk to me about his dating life, and I would give him advice. This man either had really strong feelings for me, or he really hated me, because he ended up getting me fired.
to a story time about how I was accused of sexual harassment and I got fired for it. This is my personal story time, by the way. The villain of the story, named Justin, he and I got along really well, and I sat next to him every single day at work. By the way, Justin was the youngest guy out of the entire company. Everyone else was middle-aged white men, while me and my best friend are beautiful and young and gorgeous. As you can imagine, we got stared at a lot. To be honest, this didn't really bother me because I've been stared at a lot in life, but when you find out what happened, it's infuriating. Walking down the street doing this voiceover. This is how badly I want to post this. The owner of the company is Bob. Bob and I got along really well. You see, I thought I was taken seriously in this workplace. I thought that I had value. But of course, apparently to these older white men, I did not. Today I get home from work and I get a message from Gabe, my manager. I don't like Gabe. Gabe told me not to come into work. And the following day, he tells me not to come into work again. Can you see how this would freak anyone out? I had a really bad feeling. Serena had no idea what was going on. If she did, she would tell me. This girl had my back always. Part 3 will be up soon. Story time about how I was accused of sexually harassing my coworker and got fired for it. This is my personal story time. Well, when I was told for the second time not to come into work, I was completely freaked out. Serena, who got me the job, asked me to meet her at Central Park. I had a bad feeling. Can you guys believe that S3 asked my best friend to fire me? They didn't have the balls to do it themselves because they knew that what they were firing me for was completely unfair. I get to Central Park and Serena tells me that they fire me. By the way, another coworker was there. His name was Jason. By the way, Jason had the same job as Serena and I and got paid a lot more. Inequality does exist. Went into a depression. I was anxious, was afraid, didn't know what had happened. Emailed the company asking what happened and they didn't want to tell me. Anyway, a couple of months later, I find out that Justin had gotten me fired. He told the boss that I was offering him blowjobs. By the way, when I got fired, Justin offered me financial help, pretended to be my friend. What an asshole.
Am I the asshole for not letting a mom with a baby in front of me and telling an elderly lady to F off? I went to a shop today and service there was really slow and only one register was open. There was a really long line of people with majority of them having full carts of items, but I only had one item. Behind me was an elderly lady and a mom with a baby. The older lady started telling the mom to skip the queue and go in front because she's with a child. I turned to her and asked her to focus on herself and that I do not agree that the mom skips in front of me. So of course we argue and I say that she should wait like everybody else. And if she's unable because of the baby, she shouldn't have brought the baby to the store. Am I the asshole for not letting a mom with a baby in front of me and telling an elderly lady to F off? The elderly lady said she never saw behavior like this and I'll understand when I have my own kids. I corrected her and said if, then she started telling me that my life will be horrible if I don't and how I lack empathy. So I told her to F off and the older woman and a mom kept talking about me and my behavior. The mom then complained how she feels uncomfortable existing in a public space because of people like me. I have no problem with kids. But in this situation, why should she have a privilege to skip a line just because the baby popped out? It's not like the baby was screaming or anything. Am I wrong? Am I the asshole for lying that my dad was having an affair to prove that my stepmom reads my diary? My 16 female stepmom, 40 female Ariel is very immature and honestly acts like a 9-year-old. She's the type who makes fun of someone for wearing glasses or having a hearing aid. And to top it off, she also says bigoted things. Well, I found out that she's been reading my diary because she said that I wrote rude things about her cousin Loretta and tried to punish me over it. My dad just told me to respect adults and said nothing about reading my diary. I've also moved it multiple times, but she keeps finding it and reading it. And I know she's doing it because she says things she'd only know if she was actively reading my diary. Am I the asshole for lying that my dad was having an affair to prove that my stepmom reads my diary? I've told my dad that she's reading my diary and he won't do a thing. He just says, oh, you don't know that Ariel reads your diary when she clearly does. I got fed up, so I tried talking to Ariel one more time about respecting my privacy. I then wrote in my diary that I caught my dad having an affair with our neighbor Michael. She read my diary the next day and freaked out and yelled at my dad, went to Michael's house, yelled at Michael, and then drove off. My family on my mom and stepdad's side of the family thinks it's super funny and told me I taught Ariel an overdue lesson. But on my dad's side, they're furious.
My husband demands I show him my coochie so that he can check me for STDs every single week. Disclaimer is not my story time, is sending me on Instagram. Okay, my husband and I have been married for 2 years. Here's a little background info. My husband is like a 6 at best. I'm like a 10. Everywhere we go, I get male attention. I'm always getting looked at or stared at, no matter what I'm wearing, okay? I could be wearing a sweatsuit and people still notice me. My husband claims to never get jealous, but every time I get male attention, he starts saying things like, oh, you look too pretty today. Every now and then he starts complaining about my jewelry or my makeup. A little more background info. When we first got married 2 years ago, we decided to have an open relationship. This was mostly for me because I wasn't as attracted to him as I wanted to be, so sexy time was kind of boring. I would have to literally picture other people in my mind in order to feel anything. And he knew all of this. I actually told him that I wasn't as attracted to him as I wanted to be. After a year, he didn't want to have the open relationship, so I agreed. But then this made him get jealous. Part 2 is up. My husband demands I show him my coochie so that he can check me for STDs every single week. Disclaimer is not my story time, I'm sending me on Instagram. After he told me that he didn't want the open relationship anymore, I agreed. But then this made him become extremely jealous and toxic. Every single Saturday I had brunch with my friends, my girlfriends. This meant no men allowed. After we stopped the open relationship, he started asking me if he could come with me to brunch. And of course I'd be like, no. Then he started insisting on going everywhere with me. He became more controlling about the way that I dressed. Even if I wore a little bit too much perfume, he would start saying things like, girl, you're trying to get attention, you need to stop trying so hard. This obviously became a huge problem for us. And this was like 2 weeks after we stopped the open relationship. When I confronted him about it, he told me that he didn't trust me, that I was too good looking, and that men were still trying to get with me. I told him that as long as he wasn't comfortable with the open relationship, that I would never want to do that again. Then he started asking me if I thought about other men. The worst part is he started checking all the messages I sent the guys that I was hooking up with when we were having an open relationship with. This made him even more insecure, because these guys were really good looking and my husband just isn't. Part 3 is up. My husband demands I show him my coochie so that he can check me for STDs. Disclaimer, is not my story time, it was sending me on Instagram. His insecurity kept growing day by day. One day I come home from hanging out with my girlfriends and he says, pull your panties down. I thought he was just trying to like hook up with me. So I did it. He then spreads my legs, grabs his flashlight, and starts checking me. Not just on the outside, literally putting his fingers inside and checking. He even tasted and smelled his fingers. Then he took a picture and notes. I asked him why he was doing that and he said, I'm gonna start checking you every single week. Then he said, put your underwear back on. I felt extremely violated. Then I told him to never touch me like that again. Then he said, I'll take your credit card away if you don't behave. I was shooketh. Like I said in part 1, I'm treated like a queen. He's always paid for everything and we live in a really beautiful house. I'm not about to lose that kind of life. Since then, he's been checking me once a week. So I decided to start cheating. I'm not gonna let him get away with that. And I'm not gonna get an STD because I'm not stupid. And guess what? My husband barely touches me. He could have just left us having an open relationship and none of this would have happened. Don't want to live like this, and I don't want to get a divorce. How can I convince him to have an open relationship again? What should I do? My ex-boyfriend is threatening to expose our sex tape if I don't get back with him. Disclaimer is not my story time. I've sent me on Instagram. I broke up with my ex 3 months ago, and it's become my personal nightmare. We actually only dated for 6 months on and off. At the time, I didn't know it, but he was definitely love bombing me from the beginning. At the time, I didn't even know what that was. Not until I started watching TikTok. We met at a bar, which is the worst place to meet a guy, by the way. He was all over me the first night he met me. He was trying to kiss my neck, and he even tried to grab my butt. I told him he needed to calm down, and he did. The following week, he managed to get a hold of my friend on Instagram, and he convinced my friend to give him my number. And my stupid ass friend gave it to him. He was extremely manipulative too. I later found out that my friend had a crush on him, so she was just trying to give him my number so she had an excuse to talk to him. Once this man got my number, it was a constant barrage of text messages. He would text me every single morning. He would send me selfies, and all of this without my permission. I've only dated broke guys in the past, and my ex has a lot of money. So I decided to go out with him just to get a free dinner. Biggest mistake of my life. He forced a kiss on me on our first date. Part 2 is up. He actually on our first date. Story time about how my ex is threatening to expose our sex tape if I don't get back with him. Disclaimer is not my story time instead of my Instagram. After he forced me to kiss him, I slapped him and he liked it. He actually said, I'd like that. I know this sounds terrible, but I kinda liked it. So then I went on a second date with him. He was really quick to do the dirty. He would always be grabbing or touching me. Anytime we were alone, even if it was for 5 seconds, this man would just pounce on me. He was literally and utterly obsessed with sex. Don't get me wrong, it definitely was overwhelming, but I had never been with somebody who was so passionate. But then came the jealousy. He was constantly worried about who I was with. He was always showing up to places where I told him I'd be. Even if I was having dinner with friends, this man would show up. He would show up uninvited to my house. Before I knew it, 5 months had passed. This is when my parents started trying to convince me to break up with him. They hated that he always came around to the house even when we were all having dinner. He would just show up and sit down with us. My father especially hated him. He would also grab me in front of my parents and try to do stuff. Part 3 is up. In front of my parents, he would always try to kiss me and touch me. My father hated this guy. Story time about how my ex is threatening to expose our
CX tape if I don't get back with him. One night I go over to his apartment, which he lives in a penthouse, and he tells me that he has something fun planned for us. I went into his bedroom and he had this whole setup. Cameras, pains tied to the bed, handcuffs. It was like 365 days in there, or 50 Shades of Grey. This man knew how to get me to do whatever he wanted. He started kissing my neck and we started doing it. I knew the camera was there, but it didn't bother me. I never thought that he would ever try to use it against me. Fast forward 3 weeks later, I break up with him. He decides to start stalking me and then sends me the video. He told me he'd give it to me if I went to his apartment. I go to his apartment and he basically attacks me, pushes me down on the couch and tries to do it with me. Then he told me that if I didn't get back with him, he'd expose me. I got back with him. He's on his best behavior. What should I do?
Stressed out? Time to refresh your rhythm with Trident.
I was accused of sexually harassing a man and I got fired for it. I am terrified telling you guys this story because of who I'm gonna mention. The company that I worked for is very powerful and I think that they would sue me if I said names, but I'm gonna tell you guys anyway because what happened to me was really unfair. Back in 2018, I had just gotten married and my best friend was working at a company called S3 in New York City. At first, it was a really good company to work for because I was making a lot of money. The job was not incredibly hard. It wasn't really stressful or anything, so I actually really liked it. A little background on S3. It was a totally male-driven workplace. Majority of the men were middle-aged white men. My best friend and I were the only young females there, so as you guys can imagine, surrounded by all these older males, get stared at a lot. So my desk was next to someone called Justin, and Justin is the villain in this story. Justin and I sat next to each other and we became pretty friendly, work friends. I was not remotely interested in anything with him because I was married. We joked a lot. We talked about music. I'm a huge movie buff because I'm an actress and he knew that. Specifically a movie called American Psycho with Christian Bale, which is one of my favorite movies. The joke was that he would be perfect in that role because he was living in New York, working in finance. My friend and some of the other people that worked there told me that ever since I had been hired, Justin was really friendly and a good all the time. He would joke. Apparently before I got there, he wasn't the joking type. He wasn't like happy or in a good mood. So that tells you a lot, right? I'm actually so nervous telling you guys this story because I'm mentioning names, but look at those browns. So I was very grateful for this job because it paid really well. To be honest, I just never knew what was coming. By the way, you guys, Justin knew that I was married. Like we talked about my husband. One day I get a message from the guy who hired me at the job and his name was Gabe. He was the manager. I get a text from Gabe and he's like, basically, don't come in today. We don't need you to come in today. I immediately froze and felt sick to my stomach. Obviously that's weird, right? For your job to tell you that. And I even texted Gabe and said, what's wrong? He said nothing. Sorry guys, I had to I immediately text Serena and I was like, what the heck? She said, just relax, it's okay, we don't know what's happening. And I was like, okay, fine. Later that day, she tells me if I could meet her in the park. We both had a bad feeling. She'd had a bad feeling, I had a bad feeling. As soon as I see Serena, my best friend, she starts to cry. And then I start to cry. She wasn't alone. She was with Jason, who was somebody who worked at S3 as well. By the way, Jason did the exact same job Serena and I did and got paid a whole lot more than her and I did. A whole lot more, which doesn't surprise me coming from white middle-aged men thinking that women should earn less than men. I think the first words out of my mouth were, what happened? And that's when she says, I don't know why they're firing you. We both cried. Her and Jason comforted me as much as they could. I went home, and when I get home, guess who I text? Because I'm trying to find out information. I'm trying to find out what happened, what went wrong. I text Justin. You're not gonna believe this, I just got fired. And I asked him, have you heard anything? Have you overheard any conversations about why I was fired? And guess what he says, you guys? Jesus Christ. Oh, if you ever need any financial help, let me know. I'm here for you. That's really kind of him. And he said no, that he hadn't heard anything. And I decided to believe him. I got an email from the company sending my severance letter. I emailed back and I think I said, why? Can I know why? Like, what did I do? They weren't telling me why. They weren't telling me anything. Is that even legal that you get fired and they don't tell you why? Months go by. I'm on my honeymoon. I didn't have my honeymoon right after I got married. I had it after. Serena calls me and she tells me, I finally found out what happened and why you were fired. And I remember her even saying, like, do you want me to tell you right now or do you want to like wait until you come back? And I was like, no, tell me right now, which is so sweet of her for just even considering my feelings because I was on my honeymoon and she didn't want to, you know, ruin anything for me. She tells me that one of the other girls that was working there overheard a conversation about how Justin had told the owner of the company, Justin told Bob I was offering him blowjobs when no one was around and that I had done it on several occasions. Listen, I know men get harassed in the workplace, they get sexually assaulted, but here are the facts. I have been harassed. I have been sexually assaulted, and that's happened on several occasions. I would never repeat that behavior onto somebody else. I would never, ever do that. If you're watching this and that's happened to you, I'm so sorry. Also, why would I do that in the workplace knowing that I could lose my job? Why would I ever do that? So what could Bob, the owner, do other than fire me? Nothing. He was gonna fire me. They fired me. They didn't ask me questions. There was no investigation. You know what made me so upset? The fact that these people, they thought that I was a predator and there was no way for me to rectify that. There was no way for me to be like, hey, that's not true. I couldn't defend myself. I wasn't given the chance to do that. This girl gathered that Justin had very strong feelings for me, that he couldn't deal with it, and that the only thing that he could do was to get me fired so that I could be away from him because he had very strong feelings for me. What happened to me after I got fired was pretty bad. I would say I was even traumatized. I was so afraid. What could I have done wrong? It was easy to just fire me, throw me away, like I was nothing. No explanation. It's like someone pulled the floor from under you and you're just left falling and you can't grab onto anything. Learn to recognize red flags and just, I guess, don't be as friendly to men in the workplace. And if you have a story time like mine that you want to share, you can send it to me on Instagram here. And I love you guys so much. Take care of yourself.
Subway's now slicing their meats fresh.
Now available at Subway.
Hey CoverGirls. Sensitive eyes means clean, plant-powered mascara is my must-have. New Lash Blast Cleantopia Mascara from CoverGirl.
Okay, but there is an actual genuinely like missing animatronic from the Disney parks. This is Buzzy, and he is a missing animatronic. In 1989, Disney came out with this Cranium Command ride, which essentially took you through the human brain. It was in the Wonders of Life pavilion, but it was shortly overshadowed by another similar ride. And this was supposed to educate its audience about a 12-year-old boy who was going through puberty. And this little guy was supposed to be a pilot learning how to navigate, and he was going to accompany you on your journey.
Lose your head. Don't lose your head. It's easy. You'll be flying in no time as a member of the Cranium Command.
I know he actually looks really small, but he's technically taller than me. He's like 5'8". Holy crap, I didn't realize I had glued these on this well. Oh my gosh. Can these please like come off? Oh. But the whole pavilion slowly started to have a decline in popularity, and eventually it was open seasonally in like 2004 and then closed permanently in 2007. And it was left abandoned and pretty much fully intact for like a decade. But urban explorers who were wanting to take the risk would like sneak a peek every once in a while. It honestly kind of breaks my heart to see Buzzy like this, just abandoned. Well, one morning in late 2018, an urban explorer by the name of Patrick Spikes actually went to go check on Buzzy. But instead of finding Buzzy, he came across a crime scene. Buzzy was missing and all the hydraulic lines that were bolting Buzzy down to his seat had been cut. Not to mention his oil had leaked onto the floor. And according to Orange County Police, some of Buzzy's clothes had been missing for some time now. Like they took this poor guy's bomber jacket and his headphones, which totals to be over $6,000. The fact that this is stained to my face is just really unfortunate. Like they took this poor guy's bomber jacket and his headphones, which totals to be over $6,000. Okay, but Disney was like, it's a little bit suspicious that this guy just reported on it. So they were like, we just need to verify that Patrick didn't take Buzzy. They started to pursue him as a potential suspect, but in their snooping, they found out that he was actually a former Disney employee. And he grew an online following, posting backstage photos that, you know, people aren't really allowed to see. And 5 days before they arrested him, a very disturbing photo of Buzzy's severed head appears on his Twitter. I'm honestly just horrified that someone would do this. And I don't even know what he was planning on doing with this thing. Like, you can't sell it. There's only one Buzzy. Disney will know. And he already had some of the props from the Haunted Mansion ride too. But like, what was he doing with those? Okay, so for those of you guys wondering, an NBA player by the name of Robin Lopez actually is the one who bought the stolen stuff. He didn't mean to though. He did not know that it was stolen, and this is Patrick Spike's mugshot. And to end this even more horrifyingly is that nobody knows where Buzzy is. Still, they have not found Buzzy. And I know that his face is off of him now, so he's probably in several pieces, but still, like, bring Buzzy home.
Let's hear it for Captain Buzzy! Hooray!
So this is one of the most terrifying sleep paralysis stories that I have ever heard. There was a time where I used to suffer from major sleep paralysis episodes. I would wake up in a state where I couldn't move my body, but I was aware that I was conscious. And at this state, I would get some pretty gnarly hallucinations. These episodes started to occur so frequently that I can't even really remember what part of it was reality versus the hallucination. At the beginning, it wasn't super bad. I would just wake up and feel a little bit stuck in my body. I could see, feel, hear everything that was around me. I just couldn't move until my body was released. But slowly the state started to take a more complicated condition. For example, I woke up one night and saw myself standing at the edge of my bed, like a twin version of myself just staring at me, watching me sleep. I cannot tell you how terrified I was before breaking free, and I immediately went to Dr. Bergman the next day. He basically didn't really give me that much hope. He told me that this would pass and there wasn't really any treatment for sleep paralysis other than just improving some of my sleep habits, like going to bed at the same time each night, avoiding caffeine, not having distractions, and sleeping in a similar sleep environment. And this actually helped for quite a while, up until it didn't. One night I accidentally ended up falling asleep on the couch, and there's not a whole lot of furniture in my apartment because I recently moved in. Apart from the couch, there's a TV set, a lamp, and a rocking chair. This chair was already here before I moved in, and I just figured I would let it stay and that it was probably from the previous tenant. And this time when I woke up feeling stuck again, I didn't see myself. I looked over at the rocking chair and there was a lady maybe in her late 70s back and forth and back and forth. She didn't say anything or even look at me. She just continued to rock back and forth, and eventually I snapped out of it and she was gone. One of the most terrifying things about sleep paralysis is that you know you're awake, but you're also seeing someone who isn't there. This started to happen every single night, but I was confident it was all in my imagination. I let my psychiatrist know, but it was really still no help. He just gave me some meditation tips to use before bed, and that helped for a while until I had one of my friends over for a sleepover. Okay, my time's filled up here. Go to the next part. So one night I had my friend come over. We'll call her Lucy for the sake of the story. But we drank some wine together, watched some Bachelorette, and she ended up drinking a little bit too much and just went ahead and crashed in my room that night. Well, at about 3 a.m., I heard some heavy breathing at a very close distance. And I opened my eyes to see the old lady's head right above mine. And not to freak out, I was just trying to tell myself it's not real, it's not real. And as I was thinking that in my head, she responded to me saying, "You don't think I'm real, do you?" And I knew this was the exact same woman that sat in that rocking chair. She laughed one of the most creepiest laughs I've ever heard, and she approached my friend Lucy. She looked at me and smiled before opening her mouth so wide that she started to engulf Lucy. It was scary. It was almost like a python trying to eat its prey. I don't even want to go into details about how horrific the scene was. I was just trying to scream and get away and break free. But my body couldn't do anything but just lie there like a living corpse. But then suddenly my alarm came on, saving me, and I sprung out of bed screaming at the same time, waking up Lucy. She looked at me and screamed, "What the heck?" And there was absolutely no sign of the old lady. I started to explain what I saw, but before I could even get one sentence out, I passed out and Lucy immediately took me to the hospital. The doctor just told me that I had a panic attack in my sleep since we were drinking wine that night, which, what? but my psychiatrist immediately put me in intensive care for the week. I have never been able to tell Lucy what I saw that night, and I don't even live in that apartment anymore, but before leaving, I asked the landlord what the history was of the place, and the landlord ended up telling me that the place was a psychiatric facility years ago, and that rocking chair is actually from it, and one of their most dangerous patients was a 65-year-old woman who hated kids, and she was brought to the unit after trying to devour a newborn at a local hospital. Many people had claimed that they thought that she was possessed. She used to sit in a rocking chair and rock back and forth all day at the ward. I reached out to some old tenants, but nobody had ever experienced any of the things that I had experienced there. I started to think that I just imagined this stuff completely, but one of the most terrifying things is that I met up with Lucy last night at a nightclub. She was there to party with her work friends, and I noticed a bruise on her forehead, and it was almost in a perfect ring. I asked her what had happened to her head, and she paused, looked at me for a second, and said, "I must have fallen off my rocking chair." I hate being here alone when I do these stories, so I am leaving my house.
Hi all, anyone who subscribes to the
Oh, this is gonna piss me off. My 34 male sister gave birth 2 months ago. She brought the baby to mine and my wife's 23 female wedding. She breastfeeds wherever she goes. We visit her house, she'll breastfeed in front of us. Visiting our parents, she'll breastfeed. Going out in public setting, she'll sit on a bench on the park and breastfeed. Go out to a restaurant, she breastfeeds. Everywhere. I've never spoken on it because I know she'll get mad and offended, but when she did that on my wedding, I lost my cool. Dude, you're 34 years old? You don't understand that she is giving her child life? She is their sole source of nutrients. Is it breastfeeding? Yeah. She's going to feed at all those places because not only is it a feeding mechanism, it's a soothing. When the baby cries, they find comfort in breastfeeding. She's not going to just not breastfeed in front of people to be like, oh, I'm in public, I'm not going to breastfeed. Oh, this dumbass guy is going to piss me off. During the reception dinner, she just did it again. I kindly approached her and asked her why she didn't bring formula or at least pump milk out and put it in a bottle so she wouldn't have Am I the asshole for buying my cousin's dream car to prove a point? I, 26-year-old female, work a corporate job at a major fast food chain. I won't say the exact title, but I don't work at an office and spend most of my time visiting and coaching stores and associates. Because of this, my family seems to be under the impression that my job is a loser job, despite me making well over $150,000 a year. I think this perception is exasperated by the fact that I'm a frugal person who doesn't tend to surround myself with expensive things. My cousin, 34-year-old male, is a physics professor at a
Hello dear subscribers, liked, and
Time I sent him on Instagram. Our relationship was really toxic. You know, the usual. He was super controlling, jealous. He would try to control everything I did, who I would hang out with, and he even envied my career. After dating for 6 months, I told him that we should reevaluate our relationship. I actually had no intention of breaking up with him. I literally just wanted us to sit down and talk about our relationship, talk about what we wanted for it, and if we could see ourselves together in the future. Well, he took this as me saying that I wanted to be with other guys, so he instantly broke up with me and gave me no chance to talk. He told me I wasted his time and that he had rejected really hot girls in order to stay faithful to me. I knew this was a sign that we shouldn't be together, so I simply let him leave. A few days after that, he started sending me messages on Instagram asking me why I was going out. I told him he needed to remember that he was the one that broke up with me, and that he had no right to ask me anymore what I was doing or who I was hanging out with. Then he sent me a drunk voicemail telling me that he would never find anybody like me, which he's totally right about, and for me to give him another chance. This is when I had to make a really hard decision. I chose to block him, delete his phone number, and delete him out of my life. I decided to work on myself, so I started going to the gym every single day. A few weeks later, I'm on the treadmill and I see my ex walk in. He knew that was my gym and he signed up to it. I won't lie, I was really flattered. The first thing he did was come up to me and try to strike up a conversation. I really had to resist the temptation to talk to him. I told him that right now wasn't a good time since I was working out. I started seeing him every single time I went to the gym after that. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how I got stuck in an elevator with my ex and we ended up doing the dirty. Started seeing him at my gym every single day, at the same exact times that I went. Like I said in part 1, our relationship had always been really toxic, so I wouldn't have put it past him to start stalking me. Even though I had done a lot of work to get over him, part of me still really liked him. Every time I would see him, I would get butterflies, and I was actually flattered by the fact that he was following me around, which I know sounds terrible. But every time he would try to talk to me at the gym, I would just politely tell him it wasn't a good time, which he surprisingly respected. So the gym I go to is actually pretty fancy. There's all these different classes, so I decided to sign up to a few. Well, the instructor of this class was really good looking. After every single class, the trainer would always try to talk to me. Every time he would pass by me at the gym, he would say hello and just talk to me. And of course, I would literally sit there and have 5-minute conversations with him, whether or not my ex was around. After about a week of me talking to the trainer, I get a message from my ex on Instagram. He starts asking me if I'm interested in the trainer, and of course I said no. I told him that he needed to leave me alone and stop watching me at the gym. That's when he confessed his feelings and told me that he was still in love with me, and that he would do anything to get back with me. Luckily, I stayed strong and told him that I needed him to respect my space. The following day when I saw him at the gym, he tried to give me a hug. It was super awkward and I actually told him not to. The trainer came up to me and asked me if everything was okay in front of my ex. My ex, of course, started telling him that he needed to mind his own business. I could tell that the trainer was jealous and I could tell that my ex was jealous. It was super awkward, but I felt really flattered. And it made me really happy that my ex was starting to see the value in me, although it is sad that it took this to make him realize it. Luckily, things didn't escalate, but my ex pretended to leave the gym. When I left the gym later on, my ex was parked next to my car waiting for me. He tried to talk to me, but I just told him I didn't have time. That's when he went in for a kiss. I turned my face away, but he grabbed me and kissed me anyway. He told me that he wouldn't stop trying to win me back and that I was the love of his life. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how I got stuck in an elevator with my ex and we ended up doing the dirty. After he grabbed my face and kissed me, I told him that he needed to back off. He told me that he wouldn't stop fighting for me and that I was the love of his life. I got in my car and went home. The very next day, I decided to go to the gym earlier just to avoid my ex. But what do you know? 10 minutes after I arrived, my ex shows up too. I decided I would literally not even make eye contact with him just so that he wouldn't come talk to me. I did a 30-minute workout and I started heading out of the gym. To get to my car, I had to take an elevator down. I get into the elevator and as the doors are closing, my ex sticks his hand in. He comes in and asks me if we could talk. I told him no once again. That's when he pressed the stop button on the elevator. I didn't freak out right away because I didn't think the elevator would get stuck. I decided to give him a chance and I heard what he had to say. Basically, he told me that he loved me and that he wanted to try to make things work again. I told him that I would think about it, but he needed to let me leave. I pressed the button on the elevator, but it wouldn't go. That's when we realized we were stuck in the elevator. Neither of our phones got signal, so there was no way I could call the gym or anybody in the building to help us. Before I knew it, a whole hour had passed and we were still stuck there. That's when my ex started begging me to kiss him. I kept saying no, but that didn't stop him. He went in for the kiss and just didn't stop. And, you know, we did it. Luckily, someone let us out of the elevator a few minutes later. Long story short, we got back together after that. Now I'm having all these doubts. He's trying to be better, but I can tell he still wants to control me. I want to set boundaries with him, but I don't know how. Also, the trainer is still showing interest in me. What should I do? Story time about how my girlfriend is addicted to lip fillers, so now she looks ugly and I want to break up with her, but I don't know how. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. My girlfriend and I have been together for 2 years. During that time, she's been obsessed with having bigger and bigger lips. When we first met, her lips weren't that thin, but she started watching the Kardashians and pretty much wanted to look like all the models she followed on Instagram. She asked me what I thought about her getting lip filler and I told her she could do whatever she wants, as long as it didn't change her face. She asked her whole family, but her sisters didn't want her to get the lip filler. They had a feeling that she would get addicted to it, so they told her not to. I thought they were just overreacting, but I was wrong. Last year, she went on a work trip to New York, and while she was there, she secretly got lip filler without telling me or her entire family. She sent me a picture of her new lips, and they actually looked pretty good. It wasn't too exaggerated, they just looked a little bit more plump. But after a few days, she decided to go back and get more lip filler. She said they didn't look big enough and that she just wanted a little bit more. I asked her to wait and not get the second injection, but she ended up doing it anyway. After her second injection, I asked her to send me pictures, but she wouldn't. She said she wanted to surprise me in person. I went to pick her up at the airport and her lips looked really big. She told me that the swelling would go down and that they would look a little bit more normal. Up until this point, I thought she looked really good. They were plump and it was actually really nice to kiss her. A few months later, she brought up the topic again. She told me she needed to even them out on one side, so she found another clinic to go to. They injected her with a lot more than she was expecting, so her lips looked really big. When she turned to the side, she looked like a duck. I started not wanting to kiss her and she noticed. I felt really bad for not wanting to kiss her, but every time I did, I could just feel the filler. It felt fake on my lips. After a few months, she mentioned the lip filler again. I begged her not to get any more and she said she wouldn't. Around Christmas time, I had a holiday party at my office. When my coworkers and my boss saw
Okay, so now it's like I think 4 o'clock and I have a meeting. I'm still gonna be screen recording, but I am not, gonna be talking like that. And the thing isn't gonna, you're just gonna see me. So yeah, I'm going to change, kind of, not really. I'm just gonna put like something over this, not too much. So yeah. I just finished the interview and it was so long, but it was so fun. Can't wait for another one. It is still so sunny outside. If it was like spring or winter, do you know how dark it would be up in Minnesota? It's so sunny outside. So yeah, I'm just enjoying life right now. Let me get this from here. So yeah. And now, I don't know, my hair is done. I don't really have that much to do. Okay, so in the comment section, I think I already said this, but drop down what you a Q&A, and I'll be doing it in the next video. All your questions. I just came from dance practice and it was very fun and I learned some dance. See how white my teeth is? Because I'll be using my toothpaste. I'm just joking. Okay, so it's about to get into nighttime, so I'm about to eat some dinner.
Eat my pussy, man. What the?
Okay, this is what my nephew's eating. It's some cornbread with ribs and some chicken. Lucky. And that's a big egg. Like, Easter was so long ago. And he's texting some girl, but we're not gonna get into that. Don't ask. Okay. So, this is me in the mirror. I don't wear earrings. This is my house. I could do a house tour. That's the trash. We don't talk about that.
That's your home.
This is what, oh my gosh! But that's where you've been living. Got you on camera. Okay, when I'm done eating, I'm gonna come back. Okay, so right now I'm eating, but I'm gonna be screen recording and listening to story times and maybe playing Roblox while I'm eating. I'm a multitasker. So basically, I don't know why, but the screen recording for some reason doesn't work. Like the voice doesn't work, so we're just, you can only hear the show in Roblox. Okay, just finished eating. Yeah, so I just finished eating. I just finished eating. So yeah, it was good. Now my stomach is stuffed and it's looking big. See? Now my pants actually fit. Okay, so I'm gonna come back.
My flavor. Look how those kids.
I keep this one. It's cute, it's just wrinkled.
Yeah, so it would be better.
Bubbler and I are giving away $20,000. So listen up. We're looking for gymnasts.
Am I wrong for getting my fiance a ring on a chain when I proposed? A 29 male wanted to propose to my girlfriend 28 female, but she's a nurse and can't wear rings at work. With that being said, I wanted to give her something she could keep with her at all times. I work as a graphic designer, so I designed a ring and a chain that I thought she'd really enjoy. The ring is in a style that she's worn before, and I know she likes with a diamond as well as opals, which are her favorite. The chain is fairly small and sturdy and made of stainless steel core with alternating gold and silver links over top. That way it's stronger and the clasp for the chain is invisible. I thought honestly it'd be perfect. Am I wrong for getting my fiance a ring on a chain when I proposed? The clasp for the chain is invisible and the ring can be clipped on and off of the ring without having to take the chain off. I designed it so she could turn it and hide the clip so she could wear the chain separately from the ring as well. I thought it was really cool and I proposed on Sunday at the park after Mother's Day. There was no one else around to see it and she was initially excited when she saw it and immediately said yes. However, when she pulled it out and saw the chain attached, she accused me of trying to prank her and wouldn't hear a word. She yelled at me and cried and I felt horrible, and when I tried to explain, she shut me down and went back to her mom's. Now she won't talk to me. Am I wrong for hiding my entire birthday cake from my family and having no intentions to share it? Birthdays are really important to me because you can truly raise up the person that you love and celebrate their life, and it's just nice to have everybody together. I tend to go all out for my husband's birthday as well as for my 2 sons. I also make sure to keep a calendar of everybody in the family's birthdays, that way I can remember to get cards or gifts. The problem is that my husband hates birthdays. Though he never refuses his own party, he tends to moan and groan about the hassle of getting a card or spending money for our boys or other family members. And I'm not gonna lie, at first it really upset me. Am I wrong for hiding my entire birthday cake and not sharing it? I reminded myself that he does a lot for me and the people he loves, so maybe it's just not his thing. On my birthday, I got a beautiful cake done for myself from a baker and snuck it into the house while the boys were at school. My husband was also at work, and when I was done, I snuck it in the freezer so I could eat it when I wanted. I figured if they wanted to celebrate my birthday with me, they'd get me a cake themselves. Well, today my husband found the cake, and when I said it was for my birthday, he said, "But there's already a piece missing." I explained that my birthday was Friday and I got myself a cake to celebrate. He asked when I was gonna share it with them and I said never. And if he wanted cake, he should have got me one, and now he's calling me greedy.
Story time. Is blood really thicker than water? Metaphorically speaking, of course. So a little background information. I was 16 years old and I was in 10th grade. And I had just started dating this guy that my friends introduced me to. He was extremely attractive, really smart, and really kind. Literally had all the traits a girl could want in a boyfriend. So him and I are talking for a while, and then we start dating, and we were amazing together. And my sister had just came back home from teaching in Thailand. Surprisingly, her and I got super close because we always used to fight with each other. And now we were inseparable. The only issue was she was 25 years old acting like a child. She always wanted to be at my boyfriend's house with him and his family. Weird, I know. Anyway, so she was always over there with them, and I thought that maybe she was just lonely. Wrong, of course. Now, of course, like any other relationship, mine wasn't perfect, but my boyfriend and I started having more problems than usual when my sister showed up. He was being super weird, and all the signs pointed to him cheating on me. Metaphorically speaking, of course. So like I said, my sister started spending more time at my boyfriend's house. I thought that she was lonely, but then my boyfriend started acting weird, and all the signs pointed to him cheating on me. But I ignored it because I thought that him and I were in love like in the movies. And also, if I broke up with him, it would be like breaking up with his family because I loved them like my own. Fast forward, his sister ends up getting married, and my sister and I were invited to the wedding. Fast forward, everybody gets drunk. We end up spending the night at his cousin's house, and something was off with my boyfriend. He wasn't really talking to me. He wouldn't touch me. He pretty much acted like he was done with me. Well, then there's my sister who was flirting and touching him like it was normal. Fast forward a month, I asked my sister if anything happened between them, and she goes, I think we slept together. So I confronted him about it, and he just laughs and
He's like, it wasn't that serious. So I end up breaking up with him, and then I start finding unhealthy ways to cope, aka drinking. And eventually I got so lonely to the point where I forgave my sister. And then I started seeing this other guy, and he was amazing. So like I said, I forgave my sister, and then I got a new guy. He was amazing. And then my sister started begging to hang out with us. Now, of course, you would have thought that I learned from the first time, but I did not. I just completely ignored the signs that God gave me that she was a bad person. Okay, I guess not a bad person. She just didn't give a fuck about my feelings. Well, the one weekend his parents went away and they needed him to house sit, so he invited me over to house sit with him, and then guess who tags along? My sister. I mean, I guess I could have told her that he could have come, but at the same time, I was trying to be a forgiving person, okay? And I thought that she wouldn't do this shit to me again. Well, I was wrong, because on the last night of house sitting, we all decided that we were gonna get drunk, and my sister made sure that I got more effed up than everybody else. I ended up actually getting alcohol poisoning, and I almost died, but she didn't care. She was too focused on sleeping with the new guy. The worst part of this is they started dating, and my mom was on her side. It's been 3 years, and I'm still trying to forgive her and my story time about why you should never get romantically involved with someone that you work with. So a little background information, I was working at one of the largest discount retail stores in the US, and about a couple months into me working there, my manager and I took a liking to each other. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm underage and he's a full-grown adult. But that's besides the point. Him and I, we started sneaking around a lot together, and about a month after him and I were screwing around with each other, he wanted to end things. Which I was like, alright, sure, whatever. But clearly he didn't mean it, because we were still doing the same stuff that we were doing before he, quote, ended things with me. Anyway, so a random day at work, I don't know what the hell crawled up his ass, but he just snapped at me the one day. He starts threatening to write me up, and he started talking down to me any chance that he got.
What you playing?
Monopoly Go. It's like the classic board game, but, you know, different.
Different how?
Well, first of all, it's free to download in the App Store and on Google Play. Then you can go online, play against friends.
Like, how are you gonna talk down to me when you literally were just hanging out with me last week? Like, you're a full-grown man. Act like it, please. So like I said, he just started acting really weird towards me. Like, he just woke up one day and decided that he hated me. He starts threatening to write me up, and then he starts talking down to me any chance that he got. And I'm not going to take that from a grown man who's been hanging out with a teenager. So I end up having to meet with the head of HR. And they told me they had to let me go because I'm, quote, hostile, disrespectful, and this, that, and the next. Obviously, I knew that he went to HR because they didn't just pull this shit out of their ass. So I texted him the same day, and I told him that I was going to call corporate and let them know everything that had been going on between him and I. I don't think that he believed me, but I sent in a report about the whole situation. And of course, whenever the head of HR confronted him about it, he denied everything. So I called corporate again, and I sent them all the proof that this actually happened. And currently, I'm still waiting for him to get fired, because there's no way in hell that you're going to get me fired and have no consequences whatsoever.
My husband, who has been parenting my daughter for 10 years, doesn't want to adopt her after she asked him to be her dad for real, and I don't know what to do about our marriage. I had a child when I was 16, and I'm not with her father, and quite honestly, I don't know where he is. He wanted nothing to do with my daughter. When she was 6, I met my current husband. He promised me he would love her and treat her like his own, and he seems like he has. We have more kids together, and it was her 16th birthday last week, and she told me she wanted her stepdad to adopt her. I thought this was a great idea, and he's always been her dad anyways. He said yes, and there were a lot of happy tears, and my younger kids were happy. It was one of the happiest moments of my life. That night, he told me he wanted to talk. He told me that he did love her, but not the same, and he felt a bit weird adopting her because he felt like it would be a disservice to her to have a dad who didn't love her like his other kids. He told me that he wanted to talk to her about it and say that she could definitely take his last name if she wanted to, but he couldn't adopt her and that he felt bad about it. But it wouldn't be fair to anyone. He said he knows we are a package deal and would always treat her well and like a part of the family, but he couldn't be her dad. He told me he was sorry and he felt guilty and that he would take care of it and I didn't have to. My heart never hurt more in that moment, and I genuinely feel like I failed my daughter. I told him I didn't want him to speak to her about it, and that if he
Okay, so I'm about to go to my room. close the window. Well, close the blinds. I need to put my tomorrow clothes up. So I'm thinking about wearing these leggings. I'm thinking about wearing these leggings because they're cute. And then I don't know what top I'm gonna wear it with. My room isn't really dirty because I left, so like, yeah. And then the sweater, it's not winter or spring, so yeah, I'm just gonna hang it up. And I'm gonna buy the top. Nothing in there. Okay. I'll pick the top. Oh, I'll wear these jeans and I'll pick the top tomorrow. Okay, you guys write in the comments, should I wear leggings or should I wear jeans? I'm gonna hang both of them. Okay, now I'm going to change. Wait, let's try that again. Got my pajamas on. Time to close the door. And now we're gonna fast forward to make the room clean. Okay, so now gonna get into bed. And then we're gonna watch some story time. And then we're gonna play some Roblox. Might call up the homies, but y'all can listen on our G's. So yeah.